because we're going to talk about it right now. This thing was eating a vole critter. So give me just a minute to see if we're going to go live or not. There we are. Now what are you going to tell? Morning, everybody. If anybody's here. Tina, are you there?
She's there. Tina's there because she never knows what we're going to say.
Well, you don't have that around
She
us.
might have to just chop us off. Like, nope, you're cut off.
She's trying to. She says it's dreary up there because it's frozen.
There's Miss Carol.
Hey, Carol. Good to see you. It probably hasn't been as long as it feels like, but it seems like you've been gone a while. I hope everybody's having a decent Saturday morning.
It's -4. It's not a decent Saturday morning. It's -4.
Is the sun shining?
No, it's cloudy and it's -4. It's
okay.
But I'm on this side of the ground instead of that side of the ground, so I guess it's okay.
Yeah,
although maybe that's a better side. I don't know.
Well, it might be warmer.
I doubt it. Not unless you're deep.
Some will say that it'll be warmer.
Rabbit, what for you bury me in the cold ground? I don't want to get us banned again because we're talking Looney Tunes. But
no, I think we can talk it, maybe. Carol, what's the weather
I
like?
can talk about the Tasmanian rabbit. Why for you bury me in the cold ground?
He always fed him. Was it always turkey fricassee or something? He always had some kind of fix with, multiple eggs, which were always dynamite. And he always put it in a pan with a lid over it. I could
after he lit the fuses
and handed it to him. He always carried it off with great joy until it blew up right in his. Well, no, he always stuffed it in his mouth anyway. We're talking Looney. Beep. We don't say that word so we don't get banned off YouTube.
We're going to call them Looney Coons. Looney Coons.
Who says that?
Because we're Southern boys, we're allowed to say raccoon. We grew up coon hunting, so. We're on the big TV. Oh my God, I'm sorry, Tina. I'll back up.
Yeah. I'm sorry about that, Tina. You might want to rethink that. I'm kind of think sometimes it would be best viewed on one of them little round black and white ones that you have to look.
Like we had until like 1982.
Yeah, something like that.
In a piece of furniture this big.
Yeah. Morning, Chuck. We're talking old times, Chuck. We were talking Looney Tunes and black and white TV. And
so Carol's got 33 and light snow. We had snow yesterday, Carol, and it was maybe 25 or 27 degrees. And this morning it's -4.
Is the wind howling?
And we're supposed to be negatives for the next several days. So
I was just watching I've been watching Ron Hall for nasty weather.
We're all gonna die. We're all gonna die.
Well, he was showing.
I love that guy. He's the most squared away meteorologist I've ever.
I think he's good, and he was showing that there's another big cold front coming down, and it's supposed to be the coldest thing we've felt this year, or maybe in a couple of years.
Well, you guys are. It's for us. It's just regular winter. Actually, it's been pretty mild compared to normal. For you guys, you might be getting some like actual winter for a change.
Yeah, it won't last very long, I don't think. But no, Chuck and I watch up on the big TV every. Well, okay. Well, that's if you put yourself through that. Now, do you do that blindfolded though, or do you
I
just
apologize.
do what?
I apologize.
Anyway, cold weather. Yeah, they're saying that New Orleans may get snow in the next few days. I believe it's the next few days when it drops down. There's a big warm wet front coming up from the Gulf, but it's going to skid along the bottom of that Arctic clipper or whatever it is. As it does that, they're thinking New Orleans could get a couple inches of snow out of this deal.
So a couple hours ago, I was watching a deal with some of my favorite duck hunting people, and they're in Louisiana, and they southern Louisiana, and it was 37 degrees, and they brought out the big parkas, and I'm like, I would be out there in a short sleeve t-shirt.
37 degrees was too hot to
37 degrees is getting a little warm in the middle of winter. So I've literally been out splitting wood when it was 4 or 7, and my wife's asking me, do you have any understanding of how cold it is outside? And I'm like, no, it feels like it's about 32 or something.
It's that dry cold.
And I'm out there sweating and splitting wood, and I'm like, it's not. I'm in a t-shirt.
That's the best. I mean, if you got to work and it's cold, that's the best activity you could ever dream to have. I'd rather be splitting wood as I would be
stacking wood. I'd rather be splitting wood as stacking.
Oh, me too. Me too.
or cutting it with a chainsaw, for that matter. I'd rather be doing the middle stage.
Yeah,
it appeals to my inner Viking to like.
Yeah. Throw a sling of
my inner Celt to like, or my inner Native American to like smash a piece of wood and make something useful out of it.
Use big axes and things like that. It's a balmy 37, Tina said her place. That's about what it is here, Tina. I just looked in the a few minutes ago, and I think the weather I get off NOAA, I think comes off the airport up the road here, and they say it's bumped all the way up to 40. So when I got out here, it was closer to what you are now up there. So temperature between here and New York's not much difference.
Well, it's fixing to change according to Ryan Hall, y'all.
Yeah, it is. It's gonna get cold, plumb cold.
I saw the like big blue, the like light blue colored, like with arrows charging down from Canada, like Mike and Diane are like attacking from Canada.
Yeah, it's gonna get cold and stay that way for a little bit, I think. And I don't know. They had me thinking about surgery in 2 weeks. I thought, well, what if the weather gets so bad we can't get down there and back for that? That'll be bad. But anyway, we'll talk about that in a minute. Oh, and it's supposed to be 38. She said her high's supposed to only be 38. He is, Carol, but he's also very informative. At least I find him to be. He's real straightforward and just, kind of gets to the point. But
he gives you all the models that they use,
yeah,
and he blends them, and he's been pretty darn accurate as far as I'm concerned.
Well, so far he's been accurate here now, and I'll
he's
say
really good for the eastern half of North America. Sometimes he ignores us folks in the West unless big stuff's going on, like Santa Ana winds and fires and stuff like that. But
that's because that's -4 is your normal for this time of
Yeah,
year.
I mean, it's like, yeah, Wyoming's cold again. Congratulations. You
Yeah.
live there on purpose. You know it's going to be cold. Whatever.
Tina said that he's usually right, and he is. And Dave said, "Oh, he's talking about Atlanta today. It's a bit gloomy, but not bad, not bad." Well, I mean, I guess that, like Mark said, I'm above the ground, so what's bad or not bad? But I laid there in the bed, and I kept thinking, why is it not daylight? It should be bright already, but I got out and saw why. It's just cloudy and gloomy and overcast and gray.
And you're already yawning because it's cloudy and overcast and gray.
All it took was me to say it. And rain, and I walked out here in the rain this morning, so that's
Oh, it's raining?
yeah, it's raining.
I
So
haven't seen a raindrop in a while.
it drops a little bit, we'll be in trouble because 35 degrees around here, and it's usually when we get
when you get the big snow.
big wet snow. Which reminded me of something else I was going to point out about that. Oh, it'll come back to me, or it won't. Hey, look here. I was going to talk about this week things that went on, and one of the things that went on was, and most of you guys know, my daughters, I guess, are in the antique business or auction and appraisal business, and they're doing a big estate right now for some people here in Knoxville.
And you missed it again.
No. Mark, we really got to talk, buddy. They're getting ready to do a new one. They're starting up another one coming up in a week or two. They're working on it right now. That's what I went to look at. Yeah, well, I didn't go to look at it. I don't get pre-inspect. That might not be ethical. Anyway, we went over there, and Thursday I had doctor's appointments, and it was just a miserable ass day. I mean, pardon me, but just spending time down in the hospital and getting poked, and they drew blood out of me a couple of times, and anyway, they've got some of the most whisper this so everybody don't hear. They got some of the most magnificent old books I've ever seen.
OKSs.
Do not seek a treasure. No, man, they got some amazing books. I couldn't resist.
I'm crying now. We thought you was a toad.
I was not a toad.
Do not seek the treasure. Oh, okay.
Wait a minute.
I'm back. You can't step on your lap though.
No. That's funny. What a great movie.
My brother Ron was always like, don't you dare step on your laugh.
Who said that?
My brother Ron.
Oh. Yeah, I don't think anybody's jumped in here and said they were sunny and blue anywhere today. I think the weather's kind of gloomy all over. What?
Tina just said that we're
suddenly yawning. Well, Tina wasn't so gloomy, but
it's weird. We got one of those weird winter cold skies. That it's cloudy, sorta, and sorta not cloudy. And if it gets uncloudy, it's gonna get for real cold
tonight, especially tonight.
If we don't have a little bit of cloud cover, it's gonna get.
Tell you what it did here. Just for
morning, John.
Morning, John. Welcome in, Surf Bump.
45 in John's place
on New Jersey coastline. nearby or close to. It was 60 degrees here yesterday.
Seriously?
Yeah, I didn't realize it until we got out, and it still felt kind of cool. Which you know me,
Just humidity.
I don't usually get cool. You know me, I don't know anybody else. It takes a little bit for me to think, but it was about 60, and it still felt kind of cool, and I wasn't paying any attention, and then I realized it started going down, and it was in the upper 50s, and this was after the sun had gone down, so I don't know what the high actually was, but this morning. But then when I went out of here last night, I was up here till about 9:30 or 10, and when I went outside, the rail felt frozen, so it had dropped into the 30s,
Right.
at least, and it was kind of clear. It was broken clear. It wasn't solid, but I'm like you. The last few nights when it's been clear, and it's been pretty nice for star looking. Yeah, it was
makes it cold
for here. I mean, it dropped back down in the 20s again.
Well, the best star nights we have are like, below zero, and you don't want to be out there looking at stars, but man, you can't help yourself sometimes.
Right. Did you know, and that's not my profession nor my main hobby, so as if I had one main hobby. There's a big planetary alignment about to happen.
Oh, shit.
I think next.
I didn't know, but I'll get my daughter to dig her big old telescope out and we'll go look.
Well, right now, I think Saturn, I don't know about Saturn, but Jupiter certainly is visible, and Venus. Let's see, Mars, Venus, Jupiter, Neptune, if you got enough, if it's dark enough.
If you got enough scope.
Yeah, and Saturn are out there visible right now, and I think there's 7. Brenda said 7. That's 7 out of 8 of us now, isn't it? How many planets are there?
Yeah, because they demoted Pluto, which is I'm still a little angry about.
Well, Brenda said she'd heard that there's supposed to be 7, lined up this month. So I looked it up, and I'm not sure about the 7 number, but I am sure about the alignment. And they say the 29th, 28th or 29th is when it's supposed to be when they're supposed to be the most visible and most lined up. And that's supposed to last into early February. I almost want to say they gave Valentine's Day as the end date, but I'm not sure about that. And then they mentioned that throughout the course of this year, there's going to be a couple of other times when there's going to be multiple planets visible all at the same time. And
and we can almost every night go out and find 4. Every, like Venus, Saturn, and it's cool to look at that thing through a telescope. Even we've got one that's got what's the end lens, the focal lens? What's the end one called?
Lens.
It's about that big around, and we can find Saturn and Venus and Jupiter and Mars almost every night, all year round. Always, and they're always in an orbit on the same line. It's like, well, there's that one, there's that one, there's that one, there's that one. It's easy to set your scope up that way, but we've never been able to really find any of the other ones.
But you're already at what? How many thousand feet are you at your house?
Well, we're closer to them than you are.
Right. That's one thing. And you got
we're at just below 7,000 feet at the house.
So that's an advantage over most of us by well more than 6,000 feet, at least.
There ain't enough air up here.
Yeah, well, and there's not a lot of air, period. And what is there is usually clearer. And then you have almost no light pollution. I mean,
Yeah, we get some glow from, we got a couple of natural gas
uh,
plants to the north of us, and we get some glow from that, which if it didn't exist, when I lived down the creek 5 miles further away from the plants and away from
wait, well, John, I got to post this because it's relevant.
21 feet.
I'm not laughing at you, John. I'm
But
just,
John's lived at 7,000 feet or darn near it.
yeah, that's very true.
We always laughed at Denver, like they were always bragging about being a mile high, and it's like, well, if you ain't a mile and a half high, you ain't nothing.
They just thought of it first, is the thing. They thought that it's a gimmick, mile high, the mile high city. But yeah, you guys, well, you lived higher than.
And now their high has something totally not to do with altitude anymore.
When you were, but was it when you lived in Laramie? Wasn't that higher than where you are now?
Laramie's 7,200 feet.
Okay, not much higher. But we went
Yeah,
up.
so we're at like 6950 or something here at the house, and then Kimmer's about 7,100 feet.
Oh, wait a minute. John, I appreciate that. I used to work with a lot of surveyors. So if they say it's 21 feet, it's 21 feet. Now, what I was going to say was, in that hunting trip we went on, where we went to the,
that was much higher.
that was 10,000 plus.
10,000 plus, yeah.
So anyway, a telescope out your country is starting to get seriously good. I mean,
which is like if you're up there like with a Richardson's owl hooting over right over the top of your tent, and you're trying to keep the fire going inside the tent, in the wood stove, and it's cold and it's clear outside, you can see some stuff.
You can see some stuff.
It's like, look at the stars. I mean, you can't even. It's hard to even find constellations because there's so much.
There's so many
stars that it's like, I don't know if I could find Leo tonight or whatever.
Now you're poor mouthing. You do know that, don't you?
I'm what? Poor mouthing?
Yeah, like, oh, poor me. I only have 1 billion stars in my sky.
I'm not poor mouthing.
It makes it so hard for me.
Poor mouthing. It's gorgeous.
It makes it so hard.
But it is difficult to look for constellations when there's that.
I know what you're saying, because when I step out the door right now, I told you this the other day, and it's when it's clear. I showed Brendan a couple of nights ago. You could still, I mean, I can't describe it because I don't know the stars' names and everything, but you look up and there's Leo, and I see more of Leo as a constellation than I have ever seen Leo.
Right.
I mean, at least that I remember.
So you're living in a cool place right now.
Yeah, and the fact that my sky isn't as full of stars as yours is, I get that, because it's standing. There's enough of the bright stars that are in the constellation of Leo that I can see it. I always used to find Leo by the belt, the 3 stars that line up for the belt, Leo's belt or whatever. And that was
Orion.
Huh? I mean, Orion's belt. Excuse me. You got me on Leo, damn it.
Well, he's the other way. For me, he's to the southwest, and for Orion's to the southeast.
Well, that's how it is here. I mean, that's where he's at here for me, southeast. But I can see it, and I see what you're saying, because if the sky was full, it'd be a lot harder to pick those out.
Yeah.
But right now I can actually see more of it than I've ever seen. Okay, back to my story. I got to run all the way back to the girls have an auction company, and they had
too many. They had treasure.
They have treasure now. But you and I need to talk about it, and I'm serious. One of the things I picked up from the last auction, which is over and all paid for and all that, don't anybody get the wrong ideas. is I came home with this little camera. Now this is old. I mean, it's old. It's a basic, what some people would probably call a brownie, but it's not a Kodak. So it's not a brownie. It's an Agfa, which I didn't even know they existed then. And I always thought Agfa was imported from Germany or something, but maybe they were made here because these cameras got bought out by somebody else and they named it a Astro something or another. But what's got is, and I just want to put it for decoration in my shelf back here, my shelf of honor. And but it's a neat camera. And what I just thought it was a box. I mean, I literally just thought, what you see is it, and I just wanted to set it on the shelf because I've got some other cameras, and I just thought it'd make a nice
display.
I don't know who I'm displaying for, but a nice display. So I got to looking at it though, and I was trying to figure it out, and you pop the back off of it like this. And inside, this thing's in really good shape. And you take out the price tag, or not the price tag, the lot number, and you can see through there the shutter works. But I couldn't remember how the insides worked. I mean, and what I mean by that was to look in this box. There's a roller, but where does the film go? The one I remember, and the mom had one similar to this when I was growing up. They take 120 film, which is about 1.25 inches wide, big rolls like that, and there's only 10 or 12 in a roll.
Yeah.
And so I remembered that. I remember taking the spools out of mom's that the film wound up on. And I thought, how the heck you do that? Well, I found out. You pull this out, this winding knob. You get in the right place, see it comes out further. And when you do that, you take this out. And what do you know? There's the spools for the film. This thing's in work. In other words, this is in functional condition. And it's all there. And actually, the insides are in pretty good shape. The only thing that's missing that I can find, that I can tell, is there's a part of the shutter, and you won't be able to see it. I don't know if you got, well, you will if I take this out, maybe. Watch for the shutter flash right here.
Saw
it. And you see it both ways because of the way the the thing works. But I think there's supposed to be one more little flap that goes on the inside that when you do pull it down, it flips out of the way, and then the shutter works. And when you go back, when you recock it, that piece is closed, so it doesn't get exposed, any more film exposed. So I'm really thinking about maybe getting a roll of film, black and white, 120, because apparently you can still buy it, and take some pictures of the library and the house and stuff, just because I think they'll look very old and kind of cool. I don't know, but I used to work. My favorite medium, if you want to call it that, the artiste would call it that. I don't know how artistic I was, but I used to really like to work in black and white because I could manipulate black and white so much more than color. Color took a lot of tools, and it was harder to develop, and you had to have more chemicals, and it was just harder. Well, I mean, we got into that, but we didn't get into it all the way. But black and white, we did a lot. So I'm thinking about taking some black and white pictures, Mark, I was saying, with this old camera, because I can buy film for it.
That's cool.
And I think I'm going to take a few pictures of the house. And something else that's neat, I saw these different, I couldn't remember what all the different the screens did. Screens, get it? Screens. And I figured it out. You look down, you hold it down below you, and you look through this one, and you get a portrait style picture. And then you can flip it over. Well, looky there. There's a viewfinder on that side now, and you can look at it through that.
Landscape.
And you can do landscape, yeah. So when you look in this side,
Uh-oh.
I might have to have an extra tool. What?
Tina's wrangling dogs.
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna need to do that here real quick too.
But when you take this out, you see it's got these things, these shields pointing in different directions at acute angles. And I thought, what in the heck are those for? I'm sorry, guys. I don't mean to be so potty mouth this morning. They're mirrors, though. If you can see them flashing a little bit.
I'm listening to the acute angle, which made me think of acute. I have acute earring. I don't care anything about your personal jewelry. Which is a pirate movie, Yellowbeard.
It's Yellowbeard. That's from Yellowbeard. That's kind of obscure.
They had their own version of Blind Pew on there, but he had a cute earring.
And an acute earring.
I have a cute earring. How did you find me? Because I have a cute earring. Well, I don't care anything about your personal jewelry. I'm sorry, folks.
Do you know that movie?
My mind works in mysterious ways some days.
You know that movie?
My daughter just went, huh, as she walked by.
About your mind.
Yeah. My mind works in mysterious ways all the time.
And there's the dog.
And there they go.
A little dog.
Well, he's bigger than he's supposed to be.
Bigger than he sounds at that time. Anyway, that movie, do you know that movie was Marty Feldman's last movie? And he actually died making that movie?
I did not know that.
Yeah, they had to finish that movie. There's a scene in that movie towards the end where they're raiding the castle.
I didn't mean to get us off on this subject, Squirrel.
Well, I gotta tell this just in honor of him because he was really good character in that movie. But there was a scene towards the end where they rushed in like the on that island. I have to think back. It's been so long, but they broke into a house where the princess was captured or whoever they were trying to rescue.
Right.
Yeah, and I think his character. He was Blind Pew, right?
Yeah, he was a cute earring guy.
Cute earring guy. He actually, and he fell into a pit that down below the steps, at the bottom of the stairs or whatever, and off the balcony. And he actually somewhere in that was the last thing he ever shot. Now he didn't get killed from that. I think he died of a heart attack, unless that's what caused it. But they finished the movie by taping that. Oh, no, let me back up. He actually died before that. They put that scene in, or they made that scene his final scene, and that was it. He got killed in the movie, and in truth, he had passed away. And so of course then the world found out about it afterwards. But
right.
That was such a neat movie. I've always wanted to have a big old yellow beard with smoking embers in it like he did in that movie. But I've always been trying to figure out how did he not burn his face off?
He was like a different version of Blackbeard. That he did that too.
Yeah.
For real. He put I think cannon fuses in his beard.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
And when they like attacked a ship, when they boarded the ship, he would light his fuses and it'd freak the natives out.
Okay, I'm gonna get a little bit started here because I've got this turned into a crazy end of the week, so I didn't really get as much done as this. But I opened up a whole new treasure box of something to do, and I know what shows is already going to be about, and I'll mention it here in a minute. I've already found a whole bunch of information on it, so that's partly. I'll have to confess that partly got me distracted. I told Brenda I had a hard time with this because I thought it was a pretty good idea at first, then. What I found was it led me off on so many trails that I didn't intend to get down with different.
Imagine that.
People involved in this story that I just got too sidetracked. On top of being short, did not having a lot of time because we were busy all week. But then yesterday turned out to be a mess too. So anyway, I'm going to talk about river travel tonight. Now I have talked about certain things about some flatboats and stuff in the past, but this I just want to talk about just this. Not Lewis and Clark and other adventures, but just kind of the general idea of rivers, what rivers meant in America, and so that's what my idea was, and then I'll show you where some of the forks in the road came that kind of got me distracted. I know you guys can't believe I would ever get distracted by anything. We used to sell 120. Wait a minute. Oh, 120 at Photomat when I worked there. Now you might have to. Yeah, Tina, I got to find out if you can hear me. The reason I say I think I can get it was I went online and did some research about this camera because I wanted to get its. I wanted to see what parts I was missing. Turns out I'm really not missing anything. Well, maybe one piece. But this one is actually called, instead of a Brownie, this one's called a B2 Cadet. And the B2 stands for 120 film. I don't know if you remember that or not from Photomat, but there's the first time for everything. And here I mentioned that sometimes my mind can get led astray. And look here, Carol said, "Well, there's a first time for everything." Or maybe she's answering to where I said, and I know that really surprises you guys that I would get distracted so easily, chase the squirrel.
Look.
What?
Look, a hummingbird.
Yeah, kind of. So anyway, let's move on to. I want to go to something else and then get into that. But here's my usual: hit the like button, folks. Subscribe if you haven't. I doubt there's anybody here that's not subscribed, but and leave a comment. But first, I hear this voice in my head from some funny movie. It's deep and but first, and so I wanted to mention, I did find out yesterday that I'm having surgery and it's going to be the 28th. I think I already told you that, but yeah.
Oh, good. Cadaver photos.
What?
I said, oh, good. Cadaver photos.
Well, yeah. I mean, why not?
No drawings and paintings.
Not real life, not or anything like that. Just drawings and paintings. But yeah, so Thursday. I mean, not yesterday. I keep saying yesterday. My days have run together.
Ailments?
What?
I'm just reading shoulder ailments.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure how to spell the
it's AI, dude. It's AIL.
Oh, it's AIL. That's right. Anyway, I actually, we did some more pictures of my injuries, and he told me what he's doing. So he's gonna clean up this. He's gonna trim bone off my scapula.
My shoulders go crunch, 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 crunch.
Well, this one might not go crunch, crunch, crunch now.
Yeah, this will be. They'll fix this sucker.
But it's not going to be. He's not going to go completely into it like that. So, but he is going to trim the scapula and clean up some of this around on my rotator cuff, which is actually called. Where's the name of that? Oh, my something or another
labrum. Do you have a slap tear?
I do have a slap tear, and that's why right here it says slap tear. Never heard of that. But
so you probably did this 30 years ago, splitting firewood.
Well, he said that. He told me, he said, you probably had to, you probably did most of this over a lifetime. You did. I said, I'd probably tell you when I did most of it. Then he given time.
You did this trying to paddle in the high wind.
Possibly. You did. I might have done this swinging.
Or maybe shooting a bow that was 70 pounds, or who knows?
That's possible. They're going to go in there and clip that, apparently, or they're going either that or the tendon. They're clipping a part of my tendon, or the bicep muscle and the tendon there. They're going to clip it off, and he said pain goes away. And I said, how much? I said, am I going to be able to, pick up a bug? Because I'm thinking, cut your muscles loose. He said, oh, you won't even notice it. So hopefully that's true. But that's where they're going. They're going to go in there and do some clipping. And now, and also because of this previous discussion about boats, I wanted to discuss the word pierogi because we talked about this a long time. I went back and watched their whole video yesterday of what we did before about Lewis and Clark. And you know what? It was 1 year ago this week that we talked about Lewis and Clark going up the river. And I thought, well,
Yeah.
how
Really?
Yeah. I didn't plan it that way. That's just how it turned out. So you guys asked me about my spellings on pierogi, and that's how it's pronounced. I checked that too. The first pierogi, and it's spelled Pirougie, pierogi,
Is that a Piro?
or a piro. Yep. And there's a couple other names for it. And what I didn't know was it applies to even. I've always thought it was a dugout type canoe, and it is. But the name also applies to a small other kind of boat, like more.
Yeah, like a little bitty flat boats and things they use in Louisiana, Piro.
So
But they're pointy. They're
too.
pointy.
So and that picture is from the Lewis and Clark just talk last year, because that was one of the things that brought the topic up. I was calling that a pierogi, and I think you said, no, pierogi's a dugout. And I said, you know what, you're right. But I looked it up, and we were right and wrong. So, but then it came up, what about the foods pierogi? Two kinds. So I want the pierogi eaters to tell me. There's the first kind that I found pictures of, if they're true. That's the middle. And then there's this kind over here on the far right that are like dumplings. And
well, that's the only kind I've ever had.
Which one?
The one on the far right that are like dumplings.
So what about the?
And I never would have ever had one, except my wife makes them every now and again. I'd never even heard of the darn things. She said she was going to make pierogi, and I said, "Do you mean you're going to make me a little boat?"
Yes, Tina, you did tell me pierogi, but we discussed the spelling, because there's actually two spellings.
It's a hard G.
So Tina says they ain't the ones on the far right. I always thought they were more like a sandwich of some sort. I wasn't sure that it was like these sandwiches, but I thought that was more something, but the other thing, the dumpling makes sense too, because I knew it was like a hand food.
Yeah, I always thought it was the dumpling, but I know people that talk about eating a pierogi.
But if you're talking to the wrong person,
and I'm like, what's a pierogi sandwich? Do you put them dumplings inside a piece of bread and eat that too? I mean, it's just like, it's already got bread around it or some form of heavy carbohydrate.
The ones on the blue plate are the same thing, only pan. Yeah, right, Tina. I just put some different pictures of them down there, because all three of these pictures on the right are that dumpling style. The two middle ones are versions of the sandwich style, I would call them, and then the two versions on the far left are the kind you get in and float upon the water and do not eat.
And my brother Stephen DeCecco,
yeah,
who I worked with for 30 years, he would tell me exactly what all this meant.
Where's he from?
Well, he's from Philadelphia. Not okay. South. He's not a South Phillian. He's a West Phillian, I think. He grew up in the suburbs just outside of Philadelphia, but he is 1,000% Italian. And all of his people, all of his grandmothers and grandfathers both were like, right off the boat at Ellis Island.
Right.
And he's been to Italia many times, maybe only once.
but it was
But they were over there a long time. He and his wife went over there. She's a Scot.
oh boy.
That's a good combo. And they grew children, so yeah, good combo. But he loves food, and he's always got a place at my fire because he can cook better than almost every human I know. And
there you go, right there.
And he doesn't just cook. He just the last time he was at hunting camp, he made Kentucky burgoo, which I was very appreciative of.
Did it have squirrels in it?
You don't have to have squirrel. You have you have to have meat, and I think we used rough grouse and sage chicken. And
but if it's real,
we might have shot a marmot and put it in there too. I don't know, but I don't think so. But anyway, he made Kentucky burgoo that tasted just like what I ate around Land Between the Lakes. And he's just a handy cook, and he just sent me a recipe last week. He said, "Do you know anything about this recipe?" And I said, "Yes. Every woman in my family, living and dead, made this."
Well,
and it was a corn casserole.
See, that's something I didn't grow up with.
Corn pudding,
yeah.
Which my wife would call corn casserole.
Right.
It's the same darn thing. And it's, I mean,
it's one of my favorite things in the world, and I didn't grow up eating it at all.
We had it like my grandmother, both of my grandmothers, my mama, almost every woman I knew, all my aunts on the Kentucky side of the river, they all made it. It was, you had it, and he thought it was just a like Thanksgiving treat. And I said, we might have eaten that like 2 times a month, maybe more than that.
I can't talk Brenda into making it that often.
Corn's
oh God, it's my friend Clarence Scott used to tell me every day when I worked with, is all God's children loves corn.
They do.
So Tina, I had a something to say about this Polish question. I've learned more about the Polish people and history, and I still don't know anything. In the last year and a half or so, it's made me incredibly interested in knowing more about them. There's such an interesting history there. Now, I mean, I knew some of it, but I didn't know.
They're a strong people that faced
and they had
incredible odds from everywhere around them, and they still exist today.
Right,
they're an incredibly strong people.
And I'd always grown up thinking just the Germans just ran through them like salts through a widow woman, and I always thought they didn't have.
You got to back that up. Like salt through a widow woman.
Yeah, that's what you don't know that saying.
You might have to explain that to the viewers.
Well,
all 12 of them.
It's a laxative term. Let's just put it that way. It was salts, and that it was. I don't know. That's
one of them sayings.
That may be more Southern than you grew up. I don't know.
No, I'm sure I've heard that saying.
You've been around me long enough. You heard it. I know. I guarantee it. Anyway, oh God, now I lost my place.
Tina's going to turn us off now.
I hope not. Anyway, because Germany gone through them so
we don't
fast.
mean no harm.
I did what?
We don't mean no harm.
No, we do not. Anyway, but that's not the case. I mean, yeah, they got run over, but at that particular time, but they had a very strong and long military history, and they have,
But they came over and fought with the Allies during World War II,
yes, they did.
and were um, bad backsides.
Yeah, they were.
They jumped at Market Garden. There was a bunch of them that jumped at Market Garden, just like our boys did, and just like Monty's boys did.
Yeah.
And they faced a lot of, yeah, they were.
If you'd been run over and abused and stuff like the Germans,
they were, you know, and they conscripted them in the German army. And I'm just speaking of one period of history that doesn't give them honor or what they've done, but it was a bad time, and they were conscripted, and they, you know, they, I don't know if you can call that conscripted. They were enslaved basically to become German soldiers. And
big difference between that and
I don't know if they like gave it all their all then.
yeah, they did when they were on that. Once they got to the Allied side,
when they got to the Allied side, they're like, okay, here we go, boys.
So anyway, these are the pierogi thing. I'm putting it to bed. I didn't even think about
a Piro and a pierogi got nothing to do with each other. Just FYI. A Piro's a French boat. No, pierogies.
Well, pierogies are French. That's where that's where they bastardized that name, though. That's where pierogi came from.
Really?
Yeah, not the etymology, the history of the word, or is it the etymology? Anyway,
the etymology. That's
the
exactly
word. It
that
comes
means.
from that. That at least they think it does. That's what the book says. When I read,
They think the sandwich came from the boat, or the boat came from the sandwich.
I don't know where the sandwich part came from. I ain't taking no credit or blame. Which reminds me, before I forget it, Tina and Carol, have I asked you guys before? I think I have, but I don't remember what a weck sandwich is. That's more. I think that's more the Buffalo.
It's a little fat
Lake
little food boat. Yeah, exactly. That's what the light dumplings are. A little.
Well, that makes sense then. Well, maybe the bread was folded over somewhere, and they made that.
Because that top photo you got there are some like natives in a dugout, and that's not really a Piro.
No, but it's a pierogi. It's one of the many boats they consider a pierogi, though.
Yeah,
I'm just going by the general definition. And when we get right down in it, that's different things. But
say it with me, Piro.
No, this is pierogi. Damn it! I looked it up. Okay, I'm going to talk about water. And one of the reasons this whole part of the country, one of many, but that made a difference was after the glacial meltwater, after the glaciers receded, all the meltwater and the rivers that were formed because of that made a huge difference in how people could navigate and move across the country. So rivers were very important from the beginning. And so much so that this is a French map, and after I got this and read about it a little bit, I lost my place, and so I don't remember exactly who, so I'm not going to take credit for anything. But if you look real close, you can see some red lines and some different lines. And what that was, they highlighted some areas that they had listed as being very important to navigation and fur trade on this continent. And this was more about the Hudson Bay area trading days, and once more Europeans started coming over here to get involved in that trade. But it all started here, I believe. Now, you know, some people are going to argue with that, I guess, till the day we all die. But I believe, and many other people believe, that, you know, the Vikings came over along the coast. They hit Greenland and came down here to Vinland, which is Newfoundland area. and then some people say they stopped. And I'm not going to get too deep into the camel wick. He says, oh, wait a minute. Oh, Chuck is going to have to describe that. He says, thin sliced roast beef on a camel wick bun. The camel wick bun is what I was told makes a difference. Somebody told me it almost had like a pinch of salt on the outside. Anyway, so Chuck, I wasn't ignoring you, buddy. Thanks for the help there. But anyway, the Vikings came over here, and like I said, some people say they stopped, and some people say they did not stop. And but I decided that's too much. There's too much information to unfold there for this story. I'm going to come back to this. This is going to be a new topic either next week or very soon, because there's so much controversy about where the Vikings did or did not go. Well, I know we've touched on it and we've talked about some of it and we've hit around on it, but I want to get in some more detail. But this is where they started. But anyway, they came over here and were attracted also once they got here by the rivers, well, let's just say, and they began to explore and write things down. And there's some really cool information I didn't know, but which makes perfect sense to me about some of the Indian tribes and cross pollination that happened there between Vikings and the natives, and actually, or what some archaeologists or anthropologists now consider North American Vikings, who were from that race of people, but were intermingled with the natives over here to the point where they were.
Well, how could you not be?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I say. That's why it aggravates me when people.
I mean, how could you not? I know that there's a tradition of like Viking warrior women and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. At least that's what we think we know now.
Okay, here.
How could those men not come and marry with native women but
have children?
Jumping backwards. What's the topic today?
Well, the topic today was river travel in America.
Got it.
And just how important rivers were. I just want to talk a bit about how important rivers were.
I'm just trying to catch up.
And I couldn't talk about that without mentioning the fact that the Vikings traveled. Some people it's a split field right now, kind of in academia, about which one happened. There's a lot of people, just regular old run-of-the-mill everyday people that live in some of these areas like Minnesota that'll fight you over that absolutely believe that the Vikings came to
the pinching stone is real.
Exactly, for example, yes.
And that the Vikings were in Manitoba. And you know, if
so anyway,
if 4 or 5 of them went over there you go.
So I got the camel wick sandwich is a hard rolled caraway seeds, which caraway seeds are kind of for me. It's covered in kosher salt, and they serve it with au jus or, oops, wrong one, au jus or horseradish. And hey, Ian is back. Gonna go back to resting, but just one second. Oh, good to hear that, Ian. Thanks for stopping in and letting us know. That's always good to know. You're welcome.
Carol, we've been talking about river travel and sandwiches and.
Well, that's why I had to talk about the pierogi again.
I was just like, what are we actually talking about today?
Well, that's why I mentioned it earlier. I just gloomed up. I glossed over it though. That this show about some river travel or importance of, kind of connected back to that show 1 year ago today, which was about Lewis and Clark and their.
I got that part.
Yeah, well, I'm just going over it in case somebody else missed it. And the two, so that's why the pierogi thing came. I went back and actually watched that show. Oh, boy, I need to do so much better. But I watched that show, and one of the things that we talked about was that pierogi thing and the spelling and whatnot. So I went back and clarified that. Anyway, so I believe the Vikings. We're going to talk about them more later. Rivers were also what
We
attracted.
were talking about Yellowbeard.
Well, that was a different thing. That was a sidetrack. When did you ever know us not to have chase a squirrel or two, or a
And if
groundhog?
not, if nobody's been there, you should all go to this part of the world and see all the things.
I've never wanted to live here, but along the coast and the estuaries and stuff along the coastline absolutely fascinate me. And
Yeah,
talk
I
about
went back there for a wedding, and we went to Jamestown. And my wife stood on the spot where Pocahontas said "I do" to John Roth, and I got photos of that. And it was during a government shutdown, so it was kind of a pain in the backside to even go to any of those
oh, I
deals.
bet.
But they have so many dedicated volunteers in that area that like made sure that the place was still open and running. The museum wasn't, but it's a fascinating part of the world that a lot of history happened in, including Cornwallis, etc. So,
which is down at the lower end of this picture. But Jamestown and some of the early settlements often were along the coast, were where they were because they had harbors or they had rivers, big river mouths that entered that they could go up. That rivers played a role in that, and they talked about the fact that John Smith and his soldiers. One of the things that he did was he was kind of in charge of exploration on once they got here. And he spent time up these rivers and with his men. And there's evidently more stories about that I've never heard, because we just get the glossed over version of, John Smith and Pocahontas and all that stuff in Jamestown. And they were there long enough that they explored a lot up the rivers here in this area and paddled themselves up in 1607 and then released in 1608. But John Smith and two of his companions were set upon, and they captured John Smith, and I think his two boon companions died when they were exploring the Chickahominy River. And actually, I believe that's when he ultimately ended up supposedly being saved by Pocahontas and all that. And but he went back. Then he went back but he talked his way out of it, and because he was trying to, of course, going up the rivers, negotiate trade, because that's what we always wanted. Hey, what you guys got that we can trade for cheap beads and red cloth, and fine furs and that sort of thing. So that and gold mines.
and they were looking for gold.
Gold mine, yes, and
because the Spaniards were finding gold, so there had to be gold up here too.
Yeah, that's exactly what. And they left when the first ship left. I can't remember the name of that ship, but left Jamestown to go back, and a small number of them stayed there with the soldiers and whoever else was up. That was their main mission during that time period, was to search for gold mines.
That's why they found tobacco, and they figured out that's even worth even more. I mean, that's the reality of the situation, is that they figured out that those people grew tobacco, and that became the real gold that they brought home from Virginia
for a long time. It still is, I guess, for some people and places.
That ain't even a squirrel.
Pruitt. Good morning, Miss Pruitt. Oh, we can now. Okay. Well, I've been kind of dragging my feet here. I've been kind of dragging my feet here till you got here. So now I can get serious. Anyway, so rivers have always played an important role, and of course we have this in history, and of course this is also made up. But this crossing was probably has heroin or more than this even looks. Can you imagine being the guy on the front of the boat up here with the pole that's got a boot on? But half these guys didn't have any shoes, and they were crossing this river to march on the Hessians.
Christmas Eve,
and it
we
was
will cross a frozen river and kill you on Christmas Day.
that we will.
We've done it.
And the river didn't freeze solid, so that, I mean, they had to work their way through it. It was like this. The stories say it was full, and this was what a lot of people don't know. I didn't know for years, for a long time. I mean, I was never taught it till I read about it. But what was really such a big deal about this event was not that he stood in the bow of a boat and acted brave or did whatever, led the way, but it was the fact that they did it at all probably is the reason we became the United States of America. What people don't realize is how close we were to stopping.
Right. We were about defeated.
We were just about done. Washington said, we got to make one more. We got to keep trying. They made this cross that nobody thought they would do. And look over there. You have to think about this because they never talk about it. There's horses in those boats. I mean, yeah. And cannon. They took a couple of cannon with them too. And but it was such a big deal. So I mean, the Delaware River is just one example of why rivers were so important.
They were the highway for everything.
And I know I've talked a little bit about flatboats before, but this is just some examples of a flatboat and keelboat, which were the two main. Once you got above a pirogue or a pirogue or a canoe or whatever, you were looking at something like this to navigate rivers. And honestly, I'm not sure which came first on the river system once they crossed the mountains. Flatboats were kind of a thing of the frontier, so they began. The Ohio River played such an important role in all that because that's where they jumped off. It was just the place that everybody could cross the mountains and do this. And go further west. Then flatboats became something anybody could build, and then they could take them down the river and sell the boards out of them, and they could haul lots and lots of weight because they're just like a big workboat, big John boat workboat that you can haul about 3 tons in.
Hey, John, a Missouri boat ride. We got something here we call Missouri boat ride. Well, pull, Emil, pull. Lemuel, I think was his name. Not Emil, Lemuel. Pull, Lemuel.
All right, Tina, you can count that as a squirrel.
That was a squirrel. We jumped to like Josie Wales.
We went to the Josie Wales. So anyway, these were examples of some of the boats, and I've got the one at the bottom is supposed to be a drawing of what was kind of common on the Cumberland River once they reached the Cumberland and started using it in areas they could navigate, which is another thing. Even the Ohio River, as big and mighty as it is, there were certain times of year when you couldn't go down it because of waterfalls and shoals and things like that. So it wasn't easy traveling, but that was another thing about a flatboat. It didn't draw a lot of water, so you could go over a lot of things. John, just so you know, take a commercial break. That movie is one of our favorite movies. So that's you to open that up.
You don't want to open that can.
That's a book we can't open right now.
So I don't know when they put the lock system in on the Ohio. I can't
remember what year.
It's a huge waterway that is pretty heavily. It's still a big old river that's a river, but they put the lock system in so that they could run it up and down, all the way down the Mississippi to New Orleans. But my grandfather used to drive across the ice in a Model A Ford I think a Model A, to court my grandmother from Kentucky to Ohio, to the Ohio side of the river. And he can remember the river drying up in the summertime. Like,
Really?
you know how that part of the world, the river, well, you know how the Stones River gets, or
Yeah. Yeah.
you know how the Stones River gets, where
Oh, very well.
you go around the corner and there's like sand for like hundreds of yards, and then you have to get back in your
Yeah.
canoe. You know,
I'm very familiar with that. Somebody told me
the Ohio used to do that too.
that's unbelievable. The Ohio, I've been across the Ohio, and it just doesn't seem possible. But I've never crossed the Ohio when it wasn't blocked, dammed, or
and that's why I was wondering when they'd put the lock system in.
1830. I just read it. I mean, I just
So
read
clear back then. So
it was completed in 1830.
That's amazing, because
Yeah.
he talks about like years where like there just wasn't that much water coming down the river.
Wow, that's amazing. Of course, the Tennessee was like that too, and there's places where I've seen pictures and things where you see how it could get, and I never would have believed that either. I mean, but now I grew up hanging around the Holston, the South Fork of the Holston, and I knew how up and down it could get, and how low it got sometimes in the summer, and the rocks and the shoals and all that. So I guess it's no surprise that rivers in this part of the world are kind of like that. But the Ohio, I mean, the Ohio is such a big river, and it's so much water running in that normally.
Giant waterway.
Yeah. I'd like to see that, Tina. She was talking. Oh, did I have that on there? Because the St. Lawrence was also a huge deal. It was part of that other map. We couldn't really see that much detail because when the early British traders, but primarily the French, started getting down the St. Lawrence, but also the Vikings. But that's another week, so we can't talk about that.
Well, I mean, they came in from that part of the world. And
oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's like, oh, here's a huge river mouth. Reckon what's up yonder. And I mean, that's how we would have looked at it. Like, what's up there?
We did. We have, bro. We've
done stupid stuff like that. But I mean, that's
what's around that curve.
That's how these people made their fortunes.
And these are examples, drawings, and old early photographs of a flatboat on one of the tributaries to the Ohio. I can't remember which river that was on. And then this upper one is, I would almost call that a pirogue, but they refer to that as a keel boat, but it's because how it's got the big rudder and it's really large and it's got a cabin. So I guess it could be a keel boat, but you know,
I think a pirogue has to be small. I don't think you can call a big.
Well, if you look up the definition, you'll see that some were very big, or not very big, but big. Anyway, and then this is a drawing of a Kentucky River flatboat. I believe this is Kentucky River, or in Kentucky. It could have been on the Ohio, I suppose. And look at, I mean, that thing is huge. Some of these flatboats were 70 and 80 feet long. These were
the ones that the Shawnee were luring to shore
and shooting at,
and could like, okay, we're gonna kill all of you and take all your stuff. I mean, that was kind of what their MO, and it's not an unjustified MO. It's
well, this was, I mean, these things.
It was their country.
Well, yeah. But this was like driving a semi truck down the interstate, but you know, a couple of 18-wheelers wide in one spot. But that's the other thing. There's some really cool pictures of flatboats that were not very big, because some rivers they had to adapt, and they did that. So to get down these other rivers, well, I haven't got to that one yet, but here's two more examples of flatboats. There's one with horses on it, This bottom one actually has a name, and that's an early photograph. This was almost Civil War time, and that's a flatboat going down the Ohio River.
So flatboats still go down the Ohio River in the form of barges.
True.
And tugs. And there's a whole culture of people that have grown up. That's still one of the biggest, systems of trade in the eastern United States. Still, to this day, there's so much gear and whatever hauled down the river.
Oh yeah, the rivers still play a huge role in commerce. One of TVA's, when I worked at the Tennessee Valley Authority, one of the things they put into the TVA Act when they wrote it was that they would maintain the Tennessee River system and its watershed, all the navigable waterways within that, which were defined as something, you could get commercial traffic on it, that they considered at that time. So the channel has to be so wide and it has to be so deep for the full length of it all year round, so they can move traffic, because it is such a big deal to this day to move freight on the river systems.
Well, and in the country you live in still, and probably Tina lives in still, and Carol lives in still, rivers or creeks, if you could float basically a vessel down it, it was a legal right of way to the high water line. It was basically public land, a public right of way up to the high water line. And out here in the West, there's a lot of argument about that, whether, even though you can take your boat down the Hams Fork River, is that you're trespassing on my land, kind of a deal, is how people look at it. And it's like, no, that's not how America started out. The rivers and creeks and, anything you could float a canoe up was legal to traverse, and it's not that way there are a lot of challenges to that in the West.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately there are becoming more in the East, because people are trying to, as they're getting more possessive of their land, and I don't know how else to describe it, that they feel like if they can see it, they own it somehow. I've dealt with that quite a bit in a different sense, but similar. And that's true. But back here, if you were in the river and a lot of creeks, especially if they were considered navigable, they could take that moniker, which could mean a canoe or a pirogue.
It was as small as a canoe.
That was a public waterway, basically.
Right.
And most creeks, well, not creeks, but larger streams and stuff were looked at that way back east. Out west, it changed completely. Part of that's because water is such a much bigger issue out there than it is here.
Well, but I can remember, like, Dad and I, like in the 70s, floating down the Whitefish River, trapping muskrats, and having a guy pull a pistol on us because we were trespassing.
Oh,
we were floating the river through his property. And I was just a little kid, like with a big old pistol pointed at my face. And it's a different deal out here.
I can't imagine. I'm going to back up, Squirrel. I cannot imagine how your dad reacted to that.
It wasn't positive.
Oh, I'm having a lot of thoughts, and none of them are happy.
Basically, he was like, I'm going to step out of this canoe and stick that up your backside, and you're not going to be happy with it.
This is a Marine, or maybe had been to Vietnam already.
He just got home.
Yeah.
And it was like, he'd been home maybe 3 or 4 years. And it wasn't. The dude like backed off immediately.
That's not that wouldn't have ended well at all. I'll just tell you right now.
And Dad was not armed.
No, he wouldn't need
Except
to
with a bunch of muskrat traps, and it was just like.
be. He could flail that like a mace, though.
But it was just like, I'm going to get out of this canoe. My son's going to hold the canoe. I'm going to walk up on that shore. I'm going to stick that up somewhere. And the dude was like, got it.
So anyway.
Roger that, Staff Sergeant.
Yeah. Roger that, Gunny. So this is one I thought was a really neat one. This is a photograph. I'm going to have to guess this was 1850s or later when they took this one, but I couldn't find a date. Well, this says about 1900, so maybe this was even later than I thought. It's possible. Yeah, they could have still been doing this. But look how narrow that is. I mean, it's long. It looks like it's 50 feet long, 60 feet long, but look how narrow. I bet it's not 10 feet wide. But that was in Kentucky. I think it was on the Kentucky River or one of its tributaries. And this is probably all you could get downriver on a regular basis anyway. I mean, that's pretty much the equivalent or the early beginnings of the John boat, the work boat that I've used a few times. But that's just really narrow. But look, and it's also loaded with, I bet that's whiskey. 1, 2, I don't even want to try to count how many barrels of whiskey. I bet you anything that's whiskey on that boat.
Oh, it's something cool like molasses or something.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is.
But I mean, you know how those rivers work. There's big sandbars and shoals, and good river pilots are amazing. Even today, I mean, even on the Ohio River today, it's still tricksy.
You hinted on this a few minutes ago. Oh, absolutely it is. And there is still a river culture in this country of people who do live and work along these major rivers. And yes, it is. They flat to run barges and things up and down these rivers like they do with these mega long, half-mile long barge trains pushing. I mean, that takes somebody that takes a real pilot. I mean, that's
real pilot.
That's just not me or you going out there and learning how to drive a boat. That's different, and that culture still lives. I worked with a few people that worked on barges that TVA operates for maintenance for dams and locks and stuff. And they have a big flatboat, a tug, basically, that called the side view that TVA operates up and down the whole river system. And I knew guys that worked on that, or I met guys that worked on that. And they worked a couple weeks on, they'd get dropped off somewhere downriver. And then they had it was a system, so they had ways to get back home for a week or so. And then they were back on the boat and they were downriver maybe another 200 miles. And
so, I mean, Les that worked for Dad, that works for Dad still, his lady was a riverboat pilot or part of the crew or something on the Ohio, and they just did that all the time. Like they would go all the way to Cairo, or they'd go all the way down to New Orleans, and then have to figure out a way. You know, they had ways to get them home, and then they'd load up another bunch and go again.
Yep. And they still do. And the boat on the bottom picture you guys might recognize, that's Rinker Buck's, the one he wrote his book about. I didn't think I'd ever forget that title. But anyway, I think I talked about that. There's a little bit of information on YouTube because there was some video shot of them over the trip. But they took this boat. They had this boat built in Kentucky by a guy who still builds flatboats for the Kentucky River system. They built this one custom, so it's not real big. I mean, he didn't need it to haul freight. And they took it all the way down the Ohio. I can't remember where they actually put in, but they went all the way to New Orleans, and this was a few years ago.
They
And he wrote,
probably put in it at Fort Duquesne or at Fort Pitt or at
no, well, they
Pittsburgh.
put in below that, but I can't remember. Oh, wait a minute, did they? No, you know what? They might have put in up more towards the Monongahela, where the river, where the Ohio starts.
Well, that's where the Yohogany and the Monongahela come together to form the Ohio.
Book's called Life on the Mississippi, if anybody's interested.
Which is Fort Pitt, Fort Duquesne. Used to be Fort Duquesne. It became Fort Pitt, and then it became Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, yes. Well, it was Fort Duquesne when George Washington went over and got in trouble.
When Braddock got killed.
Yeah, that too. That was all about Braddock.
It was Fort Duquesne, and Washington was there when he had 5 horses shot out from under him on that day.
That's when he really cut his teeth. And to go back to this comment, Tina, I can't even imagine how long the flames were that were coming out of his eyes. I know his father. I've known him for 30 years.
It was black. It was darkness. It wasn't flame.
I can imagine splitting the clouds splitting and thunder and it just like a movie, the dark rolled in, and then the roll back when the guy left. So, it would have not been good. I don't think.
And that was an amazing. I can remember that day like it was yesterday. It was an amazing day. We were floating down the river looking for spots to maybe put a muskrat trap in, and
which river were you on? The Scioto?
Whitefish.
Whitefish. Oh, Whitefish.
Montana. Okay. And there was an owl. There was an owl that was this tall.
Saw-whet of some sort?
No, it wasn't a saw-whet. It was a pygmy owl.
Oh, okay.
And they have eye spots on the back of their head.
They do.
And they're really tame, and you see them out in the daytime quite a bit. And he was sitting in a willow shrub on the side of the river bank, and he would look away, but he looked like he was still looking at you because of those eye spots.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I'd ever seen that species. And I mean, it was an amazing day. And then, you end the day with a guy like,
can't point a gun at your head,
a pistol at you. And it's like, Mister, I'm a little kid.
Yeah. That's, if I'd had fire coming out of me too if somebody pointed them at my kids.
My father was not.
That changes the whole subject. Let's see here. I was going to see if I can show those eye spots while we're talking. Carol, you read the book, Carol? That's it. I thought it was but Rinker Buck's written 3 books now that I know of, and he's probably written some other things I haven't read because he's a writer, and I know he's done some smaller projects and things like that. But he wrote when he was only about 15. He and his older brother together flew a Piper Cub all the way across the United States and back. And their dad was a pilot years before, like World War II air trainer. He lost a leg. I don't think in the war. I think training or a crash. But he was able to get a prosthesis even back then, and he kept flying, but he couldn't fly like he wanted to. And he probably had restrictions for somebody may had to be with him. But anyway, his sons took up the mantle, if you will, and they flew a Cub across the country.
He got a prosthesis. He probably had to whittle it out of a fence post or something.
So both of those, but that book's good. The book about the airplane trip and the book about the boat is great. And then there's one more. Oh, Mark, this is the guy. Same guy that's the one that took the covered wagon out by you.
He did the Oregon Trail.
Yeah, he did the Oregon Trail, and he wrote that book before the Oregon Trail book came out before this one did.
And Carol read the books based on your episode.
Good deal. I'm glad you liked them. I've read books that I really like, and I've read books that sometimes I don't like so much. I learn stuff. Doesn't mean I like them. but those books are some of the ones. But I really don't recommend books enthusiastically, uh, unless I really enjoyed them. And I enjoyed those books. In fact, the one about the airplane trip is actually when I found out he had new books out. I couldn't wait to go find them because the airplane story book had been quite a few years ago when it came out. Mark was talking about eye spots on the owl. I don't know if you can see them, but that picture right there is demonstrating those eye spots, or maybe it's the middle picture. But see, eyes, fake eyes. I know you can't see that well, but it's really cool how well they show up, how much they look like eyes. And that's probably got something to do with the fact that there are so many critters up there that would eat him, including some of his larger brethren.
Right.
So anyway, flatboats were a big deal in our history. These guys, like those guys on the upper left, hauled freight in this country before there were semi trucks, before the interstate highway system was here. They were moving stuff on the water. So the rivers have always been important. And this is just a drawing of New Orleans at some point in the 1800s, before Civil War time. And there's kind of a mix there. You see some big old flat bottom houseboats or flatboats, and then in the background there's the future, that big old riverboat, steam powered riverboat. And then you got these sailing boats out here, which I'm not even going to call pierogies anymore. I'm just going to say they're little boats. The picture at the top right, of course, is only a snippet of the larger image that Caleb Begum wrote. And I think it's called, I know what it's called. I made notes on that. What did he call it? What was the name of that? Mark, it was like...
I know that painting well. I just don't
keel
know.
boatman or something. That's not right. But, huh?
It was what?
It was like the Happy Keels. Oh crap!
It was like
I got it right.
Man or something.
Do what?
Happy Keelboat Man.
Yeah, something like that. And that's just a clip that this is what gets shown a lot, is this part with the guy dancing on top of basically they're arriving in New Orleans after a long trip down the river, and which at that point in time was probably not very safe either. Because the other thing that happened along the rivers was bandits and outlaws.
Yeah.
A whole nother story. I read a really good book about that one time. They don't teach you that in school. How bad outlaws and thieves were. The outlaws of the Wild Wild West started in Mississippi and those areas in Tennessee and Kentucky.
Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
Or Missouri.
Okay, and then one last picture of flatboat type things was this one by Catlin. And this really isn't a flatboat, but it's representative of something they would have been using. And this was called the Buffalo Herd, I think, or the River Crossing or something like that. I just wrote Buffalo Herd down, but I know that it might be a little bit longer name. But this is a George Catlin painting from the early 1800s. I'm not sure, and I believe this is the Missouri River. It's almost got to be. And here I can hear that voice.
Yeah, so then you get it. You got to like float your boat down through a big old bison herd. I bet that was Trixie.
Oh, yeah. And there I get that voice in my head again that says, "Then came steam," and I can't do it. I wish I could. And this changed everything on the rivers, because now you can not only take it down, but you could reap the rewards and bring it all back up home. So you could take all your tobacco and your whiskey and your lumber downstream. That's no problem. You float it down. Now you can put it on a steamboat and bring the flour and the sugar and the refined stuff back on cloth, red cloth, blankets, beads. The whiskey they already had, so they didn't need that. But But anyway, this was in a thing, article I found, I believe it's part of the National Park System's information. But this is all before railroads in the Ohio River Valley. The explosively expanding trade in produce and manufactured goods with the east and the southern parts of the country made mass river transport a necessity, and I'm telling you, it still is. To speed the process of moving goods and people along the Great Waterway, several engineers and inventors, and we hear there's a couple of names at the bottom here, some of the more common ones you hear about it, were involved, and these devices drastically reduced transit times and increased carrying capacity, ensuring higher profits, which is what drives everything here, and in turn in a solid foundation for the American economy. These, not this picture, this is one of the first effective steamboats, but this is not obviously big enough to haul freight on, but this was the beginning of that movement. And I just noticed that one's got that flag on that one, might be from Mississippi. I'm not sure if that's their flag. Don't know what it was back then. But Robert Fulton gets his name thrown out there a lot, and he really helped define the steam engine and turning it into a power plant that you could drive boats and later trains with. Oliver Evans, John Fitz. There's one of the more famous early steamboats was called the John Fitz. I have a picture of that here in a minute. Looks kind of similar to this one. I don't think this is the John Fitz, but it looks similar. These guys came up with high pressure steam engines, which drove ships across the Atlantic in World War II. And technically, we still use steam engines to drive our military flotilla. Giant. I mean, they say a sub or a carrier is nuclear, but the nuclear uses steam to produce electricity and power to drive the screws or propellers in the back. And I don't know. This is another squirrel, I'll admit. They mentioned side wheelers here. I don't know how many people, most time you see a river boat, the steam wheel's in the back, or the paddle wheel, is in the back. But they also made them with wheels on the side, and they were called side wheelers. And they both had different purposes. And the side wheelers tended to be more open water boats, from what I could tell. Some of you guys have been around Disney a long time. I don't know if you remember it, but there used to be an authentic side wheel paddle boat at Disney World in Florida. And they ran it on the lakes and there at the Seven Seas Lagoon or whatever, in the hotels, back and forth to the campground. That boat, I never got to get on that boat. I wanted to. It was there one of the first years we ever took the kids. And before I could get back, they packed it up, and I believe it went to either France or Japan, Disney World, Disneyland. And man, I wanted to get on that. But a side wheeler, I've never been on. I've been on some big paddle wheelers, and been on a river cruise and ate a dinner and all that. And that was on a big paddle wheel boat in the back. This is the John Fitz. It looks kind of similar to that other boat. I thought this was interesting. This is a steam powered boat, but notice that they've got oars hanging here just in case. Or maybe they use the oars going downstream. Who knows? And here you see it again. Well, actually, maybe the steam engine was driving the paddles. I forgot about that. They did do that. And this is one of James Watt's designs. But they moved past this. This was not the most efficient way to drive a boat up and down the river. And here's Fulton. Again, we go back to Fulton. We hear a lot about Fulton and his steam engine and his river boats and whatnot. Well, the first one was like that at the top, and which again, you notice it's got sails on it, so they had both just in case. And but that was one of his early designs. And then the boat on the right was the first boat ever built west of the first steamboat ever built west of the Alleghenies and the Appalachians. And it was called the New Orleans, which was kind of odd. And it sailed out of Pittsburgh. They built it up there in that area. at the Three Forks, or no, they don't call it that. What do they call that? Three Rivers area. I believe they call it the Three Rivers there. The Monongahela, the Allegheny, become the Ohio. I believe that's what they call Three Rivers, and because that's where the old baseball stadium used to be, was in that confluence. Well, not in the water, but on the land. But this boat was famous for being the first built west of the mountains, and then also being the first steamboat to go from Pittsburgh all the way to New Orleans. A steamboat, and turned around and went back up because people were making fun. They said, "Oh, that's all well and good. You go downstream, make a lot of smoke, toot your whistle, but you still can't go upriver." So to prove it, the captain of this boat loaded a bunch of people up in a couple different cities and took them back upriver just to show them. And after that, the newspaper articles changed, and New Orleans became a very famous boat of that ship of that time. And of course, anytime there's invention going on and things like that, the military and the war machines of whatever country get involved. And then because we can always use a ship to do terrible things. These four river boats here, and that one in the front is sort of a side wheeler. It's just in the back, near the back. These are all gunboats and military transports to haul supplies. This particular image is in an area near. Oh, well, I've got it up here. No, I didn't put down the name of the town. This is on the Tennessee River, just just at the corner where the Tennessee River crosses into Kentucky before it gets over to the Ohio. And these boats would come out of the Ohio.
Paducah.
What?
Paducah.
Well, that's where they turned in, yeah.
Well, you were trying to think of the name of the town.
Well, I was trying to remember the name of this fort, actually. No. Because this was a large, for at least for a little while, this was a large staging area on the Tennessee River for the Union Army. So these boats that are here were carrying supplies, everything from boots and jackets to hardtack and salt pork and, just anything like that. Bales of hay for their, make sure the animals had what they needed. And I'm not so sure, they may have even supplied the soldiers with hay back then for their tents. But and they were offloading that here, and you can see they've got kind of a well-graded road there, and there's a horse and a wagon coming up right now, and they're bringing supplies off these boats. Well, this became a big deal because this was as the Union was moving into this part of the country during the war, and there was one ship in particular that they sent down to this area, and it was named the Mazeppa, the USS Mazeppa. They usually just say Mazeppa, but it was a military U.S. supply ship, so I think it was USS. But anyway, it was a Union ship, and it made it to here. And this particular stretch of river, unfortunately, had a straight section coming in and one coming from the other direction, and then kind of a corner. And so the Confederacy decided this would be a good place to stop some of this traffic and get what was on them, because they always needed the supplies. The South never had enough supplies for an army. It's amazing they fought as long as they did. They didn't have enough food to feed most of their soldiers, much less prisoners. But if you look in the background there too, there's some flatboats laying there, and they may very well have been towing those, because they did that back then too. They towed and pushed these flatboat barges around. But anyway, the steam power really changed things, and this boat's the General Grant, and I believe this was his particular riverboat, flatboat, gunboat. That you can see it's a rear paddle wheeler that he traveled in when he was moving around that area when he was marching on Donelson and Fort Henry and out in the western part of Tennessee in the early stages of the war. But that's just another example, and that's Nathan Bedford Forrest right there, who managed to capture they actually got the Mazeppa to stop, which I don't have a picture of. But it was brand new. This was the very first mission that the Zappa had been on. Nathan Bedford's Forrest men forced it to ground, forced it to shore on the Kentucky side. That was important, or on the southern side as opposed to the northern side, which the Union held. And they began to empty it because it had, like I said before, they said it had hay. It was the time of year when they were sending overcoats down to the soldiers, the Union soldiers. There was a lot of food and gunpowder and stuff like that, and they were getting all that off. And then Union gunboats came up and basically stopped what was going on. But Nathan Bedford Forrest had them torch the ship, and they burned everything that they didn't get. And they said they threw most of the overcoats in the water. I bet they wish they had those later. It didn't matter what color they were, because they just threw them in the river. But anyway, steamboats and river.
Yeah, but if you were caught wearing the uniform of your enemy, you were a spy and you could just be executed immediately.
Good, but apparently there was a lot of that went on then, though. The uniform, that's the problem. The uniforms were not consistently.
They look too much alike.
Yeah. And sometimes you could take a blue coat and rub it around in the dirt and it looked just like,
a gray coat.
Everything your buddies were wearing. And they weren't very color fast, so you could get the color. Some more reading I've been doing lately where they talk about that. A lot of times if they found shoes, boots, and jackets or new pants, they used them.
Right.
They didn't have any. So anyway, river boats were a big deal in the Civil War. And I'm stopping there because and I'm just hitting the high spots. But I thought I would end with this little boat going down plying the Tennessee River right here, or right down the river in Knoxville. And that's called that boat's actually called the Belle of Knoxville. And they do regular dinner trips and stuff on the river and just sightseeing trips. River boats are kind of neat, though. I was on the one that is in Nashville. There's a big one there's a huge riverboat, actually, the General Jackson. And they originally built it for what was Opryland, the theme park, and Opryland Hotel, which was all one thing. And that was all there was in that particular part of Nashville. And they built this big ship and boat, and you could take trips up and down the Cumberland River and do dinner cruises. And my mom and dad came down one time to visit us, and we took them to I don't know if Brenda's still listening or not, but do you remember that, babe? We went down the river, and what I remember about it was the rear paddle wheel set up just the strangest rhythm in the water that you felt through the boat, and the wake that it sent to the sides of the river was really different than what you normally see in a centerline power vessel these days, or even a barge. But that paddle wheel makes it kind of a I don't know how to describe it, but a little hobby horse ride down the river or something. It's not harsh, but you feel it. Anyway, I thought they were kind of neat. So that's where I wanted to end this part, and because I didn't get all the detail, and I didn't really mean to do that last one because we've seen that. And
so we need to. Brenda did a deal here, said to anyone and everyone to ask, I'm doing okay. My back is really sore. I did the man. What does that mean?
I'm not sure what that means.
I'm doing fine.
Let's put it this way. I wasn't the man. No,
I just wondered what.
Do what?
She's having back problems again.
Yeah, she's having back problems right now. She's been hurting the last few days. And Phil's coming over today, my buddy Philip, and he's going to come up and spend the night. He and I are going to hang out here tonight and probably watch a a motorcycle race and a dirt bike race in California, and probably a little brown whiskey.
Yeah.
And so I don't want him to go home. He's going to spend the night tonight. So she's been, getting ready for that. So that's probably not good for her back. And then like I said, we've been running. Seems like we've been running nonstop this week. And I don't know why. I mean, we're retired. I don't know why in the heck we get into these deals where we have to move back, go do so much running. Anyway, that's
that's kind of how I look at it. It's like I'm retired. Why am I running around like a chicken with my head cut off?
no, Tina. There's clear whiskey. There's brown whiskey. That's probably the main two, but
that's the main two.
But there could be green whiskey. I'm sure that in Boston on St. Patrick's Day, there's probably green whiskey around. So, yeah, it could be. Yeah. But
you got your brown liquor and your white liquor.
Yeah, and you got some darker browns and some golden browns and some that look like honey, and that's a whole. And I think I've already told this, but I got Phil something for Christmas this year, and I'm really anxious for him to open it because I want to sample it with him.
I heard you maybe already had cracked it.
No, that's not true. That's not true. I have not cracked it.
Like he was taking too long, and like maybe I've already cracked it.
I won't say that there might not have been a temptation there, but I withstood the temptation.
You were good.
I fought it off, and so he gets the first one. But I definitely want to try it because I think it's going to be really good.
Well, I have come to that unfortunate part of the year where I got to put a tub of water out now with a heater in the bottom of it to keep it thawed so I can water my horses, and because the river has officially
froze now.
Froze over. It took a long time this year. I'm happy with that. I'm thankful for that, but she's finally solid.
Well, it took a little longer than usual, didn't it? But you'd had it.
Normally it would be froze up like that at late November, and we wouldn't see water again till May.
Which was I'm glad you brought that up, and you mentioned it earlier, but we didn't talk about it. But that was another thing about rivers. When we traveled rivers, and that were our main cargo routes, freezing over was a big deal. And so wintertime, you were because I don't know about the Mississippi. The northern part of the Mississippi back then very, very well had frozen over.
Yeah, everything above St. Louis.
I mean, in the Mississippi, you might have had ice floes, blocks coming down at times. I'm sure they did. But like you said, the Ohio used to freeze over bank to bank.
Yeah.
And I've read a lot.
My grandfather drove vehicles across it.
Yeah, and people, and I think I read one time the last time the Ohio froze over was in the mid 1900s, and it was after at some point I believe they'd put. I don't even think this was. I think this was pre-nuclear, but there were some steam plants on the river, and when they dumped their cooling water back in, even steam plants did this, not as much as nuke plants, but they dumped warm water basically back into the river, and that's kept them from freezing up by and large. And traffic in some cases. I mean, there are places where I'm sure they still break ice on rivers, but that was a big deal back then. You had to do it before the rivers froze, and then you could maybe travel rivers, but even then you had to be careful about how thick they were. So, and there were spots when you had to, be more careful than others. But places like where he's talking, I've read a lot of stories about the Ohio freezing over, and that's just unbelievable. Again, and that's such a big, strong, as in lots of flow river. It's just hard to believe it froze or would freeze up, but it did. I don't know if it ever will again. Well, maybe when the nature takes over, but
Well, ours are moving pretty quick out here in the west. All even a big river like the Green, and it freezes bank to bank every year. May not be good ice, but it's froze.
yeah, but it's frozen. And it probably is good ice in a lot of places. Which takes me back to another thing, Chuck, if you're still listening, which is exactly why the National Hockey League does these outside hockey games in the winter, because a lot of the kids still grow up in places. If you play hockey, most of the time you're not from the South, although there's some good players now that would argue that point with me, because they're good and they grew up in the South, but because the indoor refrigeration changed all that. But when they skate, a lot of kids that grow up in the North still skate on ponds and things, and even in their backyards they create skating rinks because it's cold enough to freeze, and it's just something they grow up doing and playing outside, and even having games outside, scheduled games outside, and it's just kind of a cool thing to do. Not to mention the fact that they can put in a normal hockey arena, you can put somewhere between 15 and say 25,000 is about the biggest I can think of. Nashville Stadium holds 17,000, but if you put them in a football stadium and you put the hockey rink in the middle of the football stadium, you can run 50 to 60 to 70,000 people in there. That's a pretty good change in profit margin there. So I'm sure it's good for the hockey team, but it's just kind of neat. I mean, I kind of think that's cool when they do that. It's a throwback to some degree, because they play, and it's funny because I've seen a game or two when it was far enough north that it actually got almost too cold, and they were worried about the ice freezing and deforming and not being able to skate on it. And I've also seen them play in the rain, and they, of course, with the refrigeration, they can do that, but it makes a slushy surface. And I've seen them do it in the snow, which also tends to make it kind of slushy. But it's still, if they were playing outside, that that's what they'd be doing.
Well, and I remember reading stories about like Rogers Rangers in moccasin feet.
Recall
during the French and Indian War, like in moccasin feet with skates on, putting skates on,
yeah,
and using the rivers as back to the river thing, using those as a way to go attack your enemy,
Yeah, sneak up on the river.
And you could cover ground really fast, and way faster than if you were walking along the riverbank.
Yeah, and you don't. I don't. It's just not something you think about, but they did that. I mean, I think Minnesota has a lot of outdoor rinks. Oh yeah, I bet they do, Chuck. That was when I think about that. That's usually what I'm Usually where I'm thinking, Minnesota, that part, that lower Canada, all along in there. But Minnesota, I bet.
Well, they only got like 7 lakes in the whole state.
Which Minnesota?
Yeah.
That's why they call. I think they have a tourism name. Minnesota, the land of 7
1,000 lakes.
Isn't it Minnesota, the land of 7 lakes, or something like that? Yeah, they've got a few thousand lakes, ponds, and they all connect. I think we've paddled a couple of them.
We've had many a fine hour on those lakes.
Yeah, we did. That could have had something to do with my shoulder too.
Yeah, that didn't contribute. Like portage and a stupid like Sears aluminum canoe for like miles and miles and miles.
70 pounds, I think. Seems like my canoe was low, and it seems like it weighed 70 pounds. and which don't sound like much when you just throw it out there on the ground and let people think about it. Hey, it's 70 pounds. Or, what's that weigh? Oh, just about 70 pounds. And you or I, either one, could flip that thing up on our shoulders and we could carry it for a short distance. And I used to get it on and off my truck.
Or longer distances if we had to.
Oh, yes, but when we had to do it for a few miles, I'm not saying we couldn't do it. We did do it, but it was harder, much harder.
I still thank God for the people that decided to put like poles and trees, tie up those poles and trees on the portage trails, that they knew that, like, well, you get to that spot, you probably need a little break. And you'd put the bow of your canoe up on that pole and step out from under it and like, oh my God, that feels good. Because you'd have a big old pack on your back too while you're doing this.
Yeah, we don't want to get you off too easy. You also had to carry
early or like late century Voyagers. Yeah. Your shoulder's hurting just thinking about it.
Yeah, my shoulder was hurting before, but it's hurt because I was doing it. The doctor asked me Thursday. He said, okay. He said, here we are. This was my pre-op interview, if you will. And he's like, we can do this thing, or we can, you can probably live without it. I mean, you can go on and just, feel like you did today for the rest of your life, or
keep being in pain.
It's up to you. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, I mean, you're living with it. If you don't want to do the surgery, he said, you can probably suffer through. And I said, the hell with that. He said, well, I kind of think this is sort of a low risk, high reward sort of surgery. He said, you're going to get instant pain relief. And, once it heals up, you're going to be inconvenienced for a little bit. But once it heals up, you're going to be so much better. But he said that early on. He said, this shoulder problem, he said, is a combination of things. He said, you've really aggravated it and torn it and done this. He said, but chances are it's been this way for a long time and you just didn't want to admit it, or you just weren't paying attention, because he said, I'm sure you've abused it over the years. I'm not sure where he gets that impression, but we swung 5-pound hammers on a forge for an hour or two in our life too. It probably didn't have
all day.
And so all those things add up, and so I got to go get it fixed, and I'm going to, because he said it's going to take him about 45 minutes, and then he'll be done, and then I'll lay around there and wake up and do all that stuff, and Brenda will bring me home. And I will have limited use of my arm, but not completely locked up. He said, you can't lift with it, and you're not going to be able to do that kind of stuff. He said, but you should be able to eat and do all the other things. So I don't know exactly how he's going to fix it. I don't think it'll be a cast. Maybe it's just going to be bandages for the most part. He said, there's going to be 3 holes. And I said, you can't. I said, wait a minute. I said, that doesn't
just scoping it.
A scar. I mean, can't you zigzag a big scar through there?
He said, across my chest.
You know how embarrassing 3 little holes is when you go, want to show off. You take your shirt off at the beach or something. I said, I guess you could say those are bullet wounds from the war, but but there's no exit wound.
It's still in there.
No good scar. No, just some little holes where he's going to poke in there. And I mean, when you and I were growing up, Tina, Chuck, I mean, they'd have to go in there and cut this open.
They would take your arm clear off, darn near.
Get in there and work on that, and you'd be really bound up for days or months. And now all they can do is poke little holes. They do the same thing for a gallbladder. They do the same thing for your knee. Well, not to replace a knee, but to do repair work. And Brenda's got some nice scars on her knees where she got her kneecaps done. her knees. I mean, her knees replaced. That was a pretty. They got they're right down the middle too. Just right.
They're at Beggins.
I should have had them put X's. Somehow to just to, or yeah. I mean, if you had 3 holes, why not zigzag like a Zorro or something in there? Just cut it and then sew it up. After you're done with the surgical part, you just have to make a slit 1/4 inch deep or so, or maybe a little deeper to get a good scar tissue, and then sew that up. Maybe do a baseball stitch in it or something, and then that would look really good when they open me up later on. And what in the hell happened here? Look at this guy. Looks like Frankenstein inside.
I got a buddy I worked with for years and years and years, and he had, before he retired, he had both shoulders and both knees done.
Oh no! Wow.
And let the department pay for it because they caused it. And man, he was down for a long time over that deal. And I was just like, why would you have like all 4 places done basically at the same time?
Oh my God, that would be terrible. I wouldn't do. That's not. That can't be recommended.
He was like, he got great big because of it. It was bad. It was not a good decision, I don't think. And I don't think the doctor should have let him do it. But
no, well, we talked when Brenda had her knees done. We talked about both at the same time because some people do that with knees.
Yeah,
and they said we wouldn't recommend it, to be honest. And
yeah, good.
We didn't, so we split them up far enough that it really wasn't an issue. Now, while we were in there, at the very same time we were there, there was I met a lady in the waiting room, and she was just there for a checkup, but she was there because they had done both of hers at the same time, and she was a pretty fit. She looked like a runner or something, to be honest, or bodybuilder maybe, but she just looked much fitter than us, and she was our age or older probably, but she said she was struggling with it and probably would not do it that again, even though she looked to me like she was fit enough to really handle it.
Right.
She was struggling. So and then we met another guy. We had to get, if you get a joint replaced, I'm going to tell you about this zipper in a minute, or this tattoo. What the hell was I saying? Had to do with replacing knees. Oh, you go to a class. If you've ever had a joint replacement, you go to a class and they teach you about it and what you're going to do and what you're not going to do and some things you have to do to get prepared and then how you're going to react later and all that. And there was a guy in there, and we spoke to him, and he was there, and he was there to have, I believe, his hips replaced. I think he had already had both knees, both shoulders, and one hip done, and he was getting his other hip done, I think. And basically all of his major joints in his body were new. And he was just about the bionic man. I want that. I wish I had a picture of that pull up. I'd show that to to Mark when he comes back. I don't know if I can find that. I wonder if I can find a picture of that online. I can't even get on Instagram here. Maybe I could do it on Facebook. I still haven't fixed the Instagram on my computer. I'm just got so aggravated I quit. Every time I tried to contact those people, there was never a response. Bo Weevil. Need a big old grampus. Oh, not her. That's my doctor. Well, crap. I don't know. Does she have Facebook? Yeah, I'm wanting to find a picture of Leanne's scar. I was going to show it to Mark. I know she's posted it. Yep, we've been to the joint. Oh, you've been there, huh? Oh, that's right. Danny's had some work, hadn't he? Athletes do both in order to limit their. Well, that's probably true, Tina, and I'm sure that's true. And being fit, like makes it usually a lot easier. I mean, they tell you that when you go in there and you're like me. She is on Facebook. Does she have that picture posted? Because if she does, I can pull that up. I'm trying to get her. I've got her. I know she's on my Facebook friend list, but I can't find it right this minute. Uh-oh, Robert Service. Oh, that's one of the books I got. Mark's not here for me to tell him. I'm going to try to remember that in a minute. Tina just reminded me of something. No, Tina didn't. Phil sent me something on Facebook, Mark. I'll forward it to you, but it's about Robert Service. The reason I'm sending it to you, though, or thinking about it, is one of the things that the girls have for this new auction that's coming up is a book about this thick, and I'm serious about that. That is like all the works of Robert Frost in one, not Robert Frost, Robert Service in one volume, and it's about that thick. And it's another one of the books I want to try to.
Cool.
Would love to try to get my hands on. Oh, here we go. I found her. Yes, leave the page. Let me see, Mark. There's a friend of ours has a really interesting scar. I'd forgotten about this. She's had a couple of interesting surgeries. She's getting some nice scars on her ankles right at the moment. But she had to have neck surgery. And so they had to cut down the back of her neck. So you can probably imagine the kind of thing you might want to put in. So she had a zipper tattooed. And I don't know, Tina, did she have to have that done more than once or just once? Usually when you have to have something done more than once, we often joke about they should put a zipper in it. But I think this was a one-time deal. But it's such a good tattoo. It really is. If I was going to get a tattoo, this is the kind of tattoo I'd like to have. But I'm not going to get to have a cool tattoo like that because I'm not going to have a cool scar like that. Just 3 little holes.
Well, you sent me that one picture, that boll weevil, like on somebody's elbow.
Oh, I sent that to you.
Yeah, you need a big old Dobson fly, like a big old male Dobson fly, or a grampus.
Well, I didn't see her scar in there. Well, anyway, if I find
I bet your daughter can set you up, buddy.
Oh, I guarantee you, she's got connections. I was in her. We were at her house the same day we looked at the auction stuff, and or I got the camera, and oh, man, Mark, I wish you could see some of the books they've got. I
got a lot.
Oh, I know. I don't mean that. So do I. And some would say more than I need. I wouldn't say that, but some would. But some of these new books that they've got to auction are so. They've got one book, and it's a printed book, but it's got a lot of handwork in it, and it's not bound like other books. It's tied together loose. I mean, not loosely, but open that you can see it. It's got some of the neatest illustrations in it. Oh man, I can't remember the name of that one, but we looked at it, but I didn't want to get too close to it because it was just, you
didn't have your gloves on.
Now I want to throw this out there before it's go. My girls operate a legal, legit honest auction. So there's no back there's no back of the store dealing for mom and dad here. I got to play the rules just like everybody else. But that doesn't mean I can't give them a lot of crap over it. And so we were over there Thursday, and I tried my best. And Brenda, you can come in here if you would like, if you're still here, and speak to this. But I tried my best to get them to let me lock up for them and let them go on home. And I said, I promise, nothing will disappear while you're gone. I promise. And if it did, you'll know I didn't do it, because why would I do such a thing? But they wouldn't have nothing to do with it. I said, come on, make me an offer. Or come on, give me a price. Shoot me something here. Work with me now. No working with dad. You got to get in line just like everybody else.
Just like everybody else.
Said, all right. And then mom, to which their mom pointed out that, yeah, and he misses them most of the time. He forgets about the auction, and that's true. And maybe that's because I'm always afraid I don't have enough money anyway. But I usually bid on stuff and I get stuff, but it's usually stuff other people don't want anyway. Well, I can't find her scar. I'll find it, but it's the neatest scar. And yeah, she is proud of the tattoo. And yeah, she is proud of it. So she shows it. But it's, like I said, it's neat. Dang it. I know I've seen that. I know she's put it on here. Oh, well, so much for that. I won't.
You ain't gonna find it.
No, I don't think so. I've looked through all this stuff on Facebook, and so far I have not found it. There's a grizzly bear with 3 cubs. That's kind of unusual, not entirely, but black bear, you see that a lot.
Was it $3.99?
I don't know. Well, it could have been. That's a good. I don't know. It could have been. She had triplets several times, I believe.
Yep, and all of them were. Every one of those bears except one is deceased because of conflicts with humans. And she attacked a dude back years ago and then attacked another guy probably here fairly recently. So,
but is she still around, or have they put her down now?
No, she got hit on the highway.
That's what it was. I knew
it was a national tragedy.
Yeah. She had produced a lot of cubs over the years, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and one of them's alive. Out of all those cubs,
she was 2.
Some of them were eaten by male bears, and some of them were removed because they got in trouble.
Yeah, Tina said she couldn't find the tattoo either. Well, maybe next time, or if I find it, Mark, I'll send it to you. But yeah, she was probably just that much too. What's the word, Mark?
Habituated to human beings.
Yeah, let's use that. Human beings. Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah.
There was another word I was thinking of, but it means the same thing. Yeah, that's sad. I mean, in its own way.
It's sad.
But anyhow, that was so I don't know how we got off on that, but Tina says
you talked about grizzly bears and a bear with 3 cubs. That's how we got off on
that. That's how we got there. I know. There's always a way. Oh, I'm on the wrong. I can't.
We scrolled off on like we always do.
Well, Tina, I'll have to think about that though. If I get 3 good holes here that make little. Oh, damn! I keep hitting that spot. I wish I kept doing that. I wonder Mark. How about 3 arrow holes or something? I could maybe get.
That'd be cool.
I don't know how I'd make it look like arrow holes though. Maybe put little marks that look like feather burns. Where it went through.
Like where a 4-blade broadhead hit you.
Where a 4-blade broadhead went through me. I don't have any tattoos, but I've been thinking about a tattoo now before I die. And maybe that would be it. I can have little broadhead marks put on there. And I'll have to think about that. Maybe that would work.
Well, and you told me I had to redo mine.
Well, it just needs more ink.
It's just, well, I mean, there ain't much to it.
I see it now,
it was just mountains, and it was,
yeah.
well, it's just triangles is what it is.
Well, but that was mountains, and
yeah, it was mountains in it. But I did it with a piece of chert and a mammoth bone needle. So
with the chert, and then
it was like a prison tattoo, I guess. You just poke.
Use what you got, buddy.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they use in prison, actually. What would you make?
And I did it myself. So
there. I wasn't. And by all means,
take that, modern day human beings.
Yeah. And I wasn't trying to belittle it by any means. I just, when you showed it there that day, I thought, wow, I thought it was darker than that. And I thought, well, maybe it's faded some. So,
well, it has faded some, and there are some places that probably need touched up. But
I wonder. Well,
you got to have your mind in the middle to do that.
I wonder. I've got the inks I use in my pens, and I say that like I write a lot, but I try to write with these more and more. Fountain pens.
Yeah.
The ink I use for these is water based, and I wonder what that would do. I wonder if that would. Now, I mean, if everything else was okay, if there wasn't any, arsenic in it or something, but I just wonder if a water based ink. I don't know if India Ink's is watered down or not.
I don't know.
I don't either. I have to see how they make that. This place I'm talking about, and I've got a couple of their inks. I've been using a couple of their inks. They're out of Pittsburgh. They're called the Birmingham Pen Company for Birmingham Steel. Their family has, I think, a long history of Birmingham steel employment back in the day, and they got a neat little business. They sell pens and ink, and they mix their own inks. And I just think they're kind of cool. They're just a little company. I think there's 3 guys. I believe it's a father and 2 sons, I think. And I know the father they make 3 or 4 different models of pens, but they're all basically the same, and they're just cylindrical, turned down on a lathe, and capped off. They make one that has an aluminum body, and then a couple that are made out of some kind of resins, but they make them all in house, which I think is cool. Right here in the good old U.S. of A. And they mix their inks right up there in Pittsburgh, so it's probably got good old Ohio River water in it.
Yeah,
some mix thereof. So that might be good or that might be bad. I don't know.
Good old Ohio River, my acid mine drainage water.
Do what?
Good old acid mine drainage water coming into the Ohio River by Raccoon Creek or whatever.
That's we're talking some serious.
What's an SS?
What?
Oh,
she sent me a picture of that tattoo to show you, and I'm looking for it.
Yeah, but she said an SS. What's an SS?
Well, I thought she meant well, I'm not sure. A text. I thought she meant. I can't think of the name of it. Come on, Tim. Take Instagram. I thought she meant Instagram. Maybe she didn't. Oh, a screenshot. Where did you send it, Tina? Email? Because if you did, I can pop that right on the screen. Let me look.
That doesn't mean the same thing to me, Tina.
Well, so far, Tina, I don't have it.
Grandfather. It didn't mean the same thing.
Do what?
SS doesn't mean the same thing to me. or nor to my grandfather. But it's handy shorthand.
You know what, Tina? I just thought of something. No, I thought, well, maybe. Hang on. Ooh, I don't know what that scar. That was painful.
It's okay, Tina. I'm
What-
just being aggravating.
Okay, there's her neck. There's her neck where they did the surgery. Or maybe I sent her that to look at. Because of her background, I sent her something one time. We were talking about my spinal surgery, and I sent her some images, and she told me what that was about. Well, I don't have it yet. I don't see the scar yet. I mean, I was looking through her pictures. I got a bunch of pictures from her, or she sent me over the years in Instagram that I still have on my phone, but I don't see the scar. And I know she sent it to me. Anyway, I'll find it and I'll show it to you, buddy, because it's worth it. I mean, it's cool. So who knows? Maybe I can figure out something. You guys will have to help me think about this. When I get through, we'll have to look at it and get some ideas. Maybe it could be a lightning bolt connected up by 3 dots, or maybe I could look like what were the Connexits or they were kind of like modern day.
And you'd look like the San Diego Chargers or something. I mean, excuse me, the Los Angeles Chargers.
No, yeah, no thanks. That's good.
Yeah, exactly. No thanks.
I didn't. Let me see. I'm sorry. You know what? I forgot to look. That's the one place I forgot to look, and I don't know why. But I did. There it is, right there. Yeah, look here, Mark. I don't know if I can make this any bigger or not. Probably not. I think it's big enough. Let's see here. There. Check that out.
That looked like that hurt.
Well, I think it probably hurt both ways when they did that.
No, I mean the original.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking. But I thought that was one of the coolest tattoos because whoever did that for her really matched it up well and did a good job with it, I thought. And I thought, man, I like that. If you're going to honor your,
and I don't know how other people feel about it, but scar tissue, I have scars that are darn near 60 years old that still hurt.
I bet you've got a couple that are older than that.
That are like, I mean, I can tap them wrong still to this day, and they still like, daggone, that hurt. And
they can be tender.
The hide around it didn't hurt, but the scar tissue, the scar itself hurt. And it's like, why does it still hurt after all these years? Anyway,
I don't know, Brenda. Again, if you're still in here, do your scars on your knees hurt, or is it just? I know her knees. 90-something% of the pain that she had in her knees went completely away, and at least for a long time after she had them done. I mean, it was like she said, it was like pain-free living, and I can't imagine living that free. So it just made me jealous and kept wanting somebody to do my back, my lower back. And there's a doctor or two out west that actually do replace degenerative disc, but they don't do it back here.
Really?
For some reason, nobody back here really likes to talk about that.
Because we all had degenerated discs.
Huh?
because we all have degenerated discs.
Well, we do, but some of us are worse than others because mine are wrecked, and then they went completely to crap, and
Yeah.
they had a head start. Let's put it that way. And they're just down there bone to bone. You know the whole story. It sucks. It's a whole thing. And I have asked. I thought we were going to fix it one time, and then the doctors decided no, we don't think we want to do that. So I did.
I got arthritis in my lower back pretty bad, and they're just like, well, we could maybe do some stuff. We could get in there and dig around, poke around, and do some stuff, but probably isn't going to do a lot of. And I'm just like, that's enough for me. You ain't touching me with the. Stay away from that.
And I think I know we've talked about this. If somebody has a recommendation, I'm going to listen. But I think I'm going to change coffee brands. I'm not sure yet which route. Well, I do know. I'm 99% sure. And Tina, you guys helped me. You sold me on this partially. Tina sent me some tea one time that they get up, or not tea, scratch that. Coffee that her and Chuck get, I guess, up there that's freshly roasted nearby. And I always bragged about my trying to use whole bean coffee because it stays fresher longer, and it does. But now I've also figured out that even once it's roasted, though, it starts to lose its better flavors. You can smell it, so you know it's gas and all. So the closer you are to having it roasted, the fresher it is. It makes sense. So I think I'm gonna start getting mine down there where Phil does in Maryville, and I think the guy will ship it to me. It's called Vienna Coffee Company, and they roast it right there in downtown Maryville, Tennessee, and bag it up right there warm and send it out, and it's pretty tasty. John is back. He had to run to the store. Mama wanted milk. Yeah.
Well, the BRCC boys have a great big facility there and just south of Nashville. I'm not sure how far that is comparatively, but.
No, say that again.
I said the BRCC boys have a big old deal there just south of Nashville.
Yeah, I don't remember where that's at.
I don't remember what town it's in. It might be
Murray. I'm not sure.
Where's Maryville at?
Maryville's just south of me, or not?
Oh, yeah, I.
Now they could.
It would be further away than that.
Oh, okay. Because there is a couple of larger roasters down there in that area that do roast for other people, like the Green Mountain Coffee Company that makes a lot of the cures.
Right.
They do a lot of that. They roast that coffee in Maryville also.
Okay.
And that's where one of their big plants is or was. How far are we from Knox County? Well, just
right next door.
Yeah, almost practically next door. I have to go through a county or so, but yeah, that's where I lived, John, until I moved here. I'm in Hawkins County now, where your brother lives, but we lived in Knox County until 8 months ago. My wife keeps telling me that I'm in denial about how long we've lived here, and she's probably right. I keep thinking it's not been hardly any time, and she keeps saying, it's been 8 months. About time you got over that. And just for a little kind of interesting tidbit, they finally finished I think they have now finished the remodeling of the house where we lived and cut down all the trees. It makes me. I've seen pictures. I haven't gone by there, but it just makes me want to cry. Because other than the fact that it was in a subdivision and it was in town, I really liked that house. I would like to have bought that house, just because I was comfortable there, I suppose. But I can shoot my 22 off the back porch here, and I couldn't down there, by God. So this is better. I mean,
this is better.
And I really love this place. Don't get me wrong. But anyway, I think they've finished, or they're close enough now that they've put it on the market. Because now they've decided they are gonna sell it. Well, lo and behold, after they
after they trash it.
well, trash it in my opinion, but remodel it in their opinion, because they did do some stuff inside, but not that much. They did put in the one thing, nice thing they did do though, they put a complete bathroom downstairs where the utility laundry room was. If you were you ever in that house?
Once for
Yeah.
one evening, I don't remember.
Well, anyway, they put in a full shower and all that down there, so that can be a bedroom or a sublet apartment. I don't know, and that's nice. But other than that, but they want $500,000 for it now, and I just keep looking at it thinking, this house was built in 1977, I believe. It was built the same year Brenda's house was built, the one that she lived in while we were in high school. Her dad built it, or local with somebody he knew. They built the house, and I believe it was in 76 or 77. And that house in Knoxville was that age. So the bones of that house, while good, are old. I mean, comparatively speaking. And
My house is old, dude.
Well, yeah, your house is old. And your house is older than mine or that one. I agree. You got it. You got me there. But what I mean is, I'm not sure it's a $500,000 house, but that's just my opinion. I can't see anything in that subdivision being that much. But then again, I don't keep up with stuff like that, so I'm probably wrong.
It was too much town for me, buddy.
Well, honestly, it was for me too. And in hindsight, I wish we had never lived in town there. It became too easy, too convenient. It was good for the girls. They were close to schools. That was great. It was kind of good for Brenda because it was just a few miles to where she worked. I drove, 30, 50 miles one way every day to go to work and back, to make it more convenient for them. But at the same time, it became easy to live there. I mean, we had everything we needed, so why bother? And in hindsight, I think I would be in a lot better shape and be doing more if I was still out in the country. So now I'm trying to play catch up, and I keep, I bucked off the lawnmower and about killed myself. And people would think I was a city boy or something. I'm not. I don't.
But if you could go out on your back porch right now and just crack a few rounds off, you're living where you're supposed to be living.
That's true. That's very true. I saw a really interesting target butt recently, not somewhere around here or on TV, maybe on YouTube. And I got a place right out here that I could do that. And I can't get 100 yards, but I bet I could get close to 50. And I'd be shooting right into my hillside.
And you could get like a little old 3D target and like pick you up like a 40-pound bow and start flinging a few arrows again.
And I plan to do that right out there. Chuck says, I wouldn't want a new house. I like our home built from the 50s. Absolutely, Chuck. I agree. And I wouldn't want a new one either, especially when you see how, in fact, our house is older. Our house is in the 30s, I believe, that one we're in now. It's been redone, and the library building is not near that old. But the house itself, I think, was built in 36 or 8, somewhere in there. The original house. And I do too. I agree. I like old houses better. They're built better. And that house up there was built better. When I say I don't think it's a $500,000 house, I tend to look back and think about what that cost to build and how long it's been there. And, they did a lot of work to it, but if they didn't replace all the wiring in it, then they probably didn't really do the whole job. But anyway, compared to new built houses, oh, much, much better. People, even what guys these days I'd call pretty good that build quality stuff, don't build quality stuff. I mean, not like they used to build it.
Right.
It's It's not the same.
That's why my wife's addicted to these shows where they take down some old building built in the 1700s in New York and move it to Texas or whatever and rebuild it and turn it into a home or something. And they're
People really do that.
they do it all the time, dude.
Mm.
They're tearing down stuff in the north, especially in the Northeast, like crazy.
Taking it apart and then putting it back together.
Old barns and things,
Yeah,
old hand-hewn barn, hand-hewn logs, and taking them and they haul them to Texas.
I heard it.
Well, you had crows earlier.
Well, no, but this probably was on the road. It sounded like it was coming from back here. It was just real loud all of a sudden. Anyway, but I did know that. I wasn't sure what you said about houses. Well, I mean, people have been taking down log houses for years in this part of the country and rebuilding them, putting them back together. Your dad's done some of that.
We did a bunch of that when I was a kid. I was the nail guy. Everything that got thrown in the burn pile, I had a magnet about that big around on a rope, and I threw it out there in the ashes and got all the square nails.
Cool.
And yeah.
Speaking of what, have you ever watched the guys on YouTube that go magnet fishing?
I haven't.
Brenda had showed me some.
I need another thing on YouTube to watch.
I'll send you the link, buddy.
Yeah.
Because I do that. That's the kind of guy I am. I give, and
You're
I give.
a giver. You're just a giver. Hey, Leo, Chris.
Well, I knew you've enjoyed it.
And Wild Kyle, you got me started on those two.
And where was I going with that? What?
I don't know. Have to do something with hunting, I bet.
Yeah. No, and it's something to do with what we were just talking about before we got the Wild Kyle website. Oh, magnet fishers.
Magnet fishermen.
They take a big magnet like you're talking about on a rope, and they just wind that thing up and fling it out into a creek or a riverbed below a dam. I mean, not a dam, a bridge and water cross. Any place where the roads cross water.
Pick up needles and things.
Well, and guns and bombs and safes and just all manners of stuff that people have gotten rid of. I'm throwing them over the side.
Chucking them off in the river.
Huh?
Chucking them off into the river like Billy Joe McAllister or whoever that jumped off.
I saw a guy pull out a shotgun, a sawed-off shotgun one day. And when they pull up a gun, they've got to call the local authorities and let them know they found one in case it's something they're looking for. And then if it's not and they clear it, a lot of times, I'm sure this depends on where you live, but they can get some of them back. Now, some of them aren't legal, so they can't, but it's they find some interesting stuff. I tell you, I don't watch them, but I've seen them a couple of times, and it's just it's another one of those things you click on if you're not really doing something, you're killing time, and you see that, and suddenly you realize you've watched 30 minutes of guys pulling really strange stuff out of the river bottom. And I always think, damn, I probably walked over that. What you got in your hand there, buddy?
I've been braiding.
Oh yeah. So is that
I don't know if you can see that. Let me see. I'm not good at this.
No, that's good right there. You had it. What's inside of that? Just more rawhide?
Oh, some latigo and some tape. You can see I got a little knot I need to build right there to cover that last little bit of tape.
Ah, okay.
Anyway, I've been braiding this bosal for my buddy.
Yeah.
Actually, for his wife.
Not for her, but for her.
Riding her pony.
Yeah.
For her horse.
Let's clear this up real quick. No, he's not putting that on his.
Not for his wife. That's for his. It's a gift for his wife for her horse.
Yeah, and that's what you use. That goes over their nose, and that knot goes below their chin, right?
Yeah, and you got a big long braided rope rein that's called a Makati that ties around the base of this thing right here at the base of this, and that knot's just to give weight to it, and then that's called the nose button. It goes over their nose.
Hang on a minute. Let's say bye to Carol, and then I want to ask you something else. Bye, Carol. Thanks for coming by. Really appreciate you being here. Hope you have a good rest of your weekend. Gee, I don't even know if they're still playing. Is Detroit still in the playoffs? I can't remember. Did they?
Who?
Detroit.
Which playoff?
The NFL playoffs. Sorry. Football. Aren't they still in it?
I don't think so, but maybe they are.
Well, they might not be. They may have. That may be why I wasn't thinking they're gone. I'm going to grab a beer and watch the Devil Flyers game. Is that coming on? Cool. John, have fun. We're not going to be here much longer, but thanks for coming by. You know, give me a call sometime if you're not busy.
I need one of you all to come out here and bring a sledgehammer or something. I got a water tank froze to the ground. I need to get broke free. I have no idea how I'm gonna get this thing loose.
Oh, can you build a fire around Detroit plays? Yeah, Detroit plays Washington tonight. So good luck, Carol, if you're watching that ball game. I'll probably be watching that too.
Are they going back to the Redskins, by the way?
Washington, I don't reckon. Have you heard?
I had heard that they were. Like,
I don't know.
Like we're like the people that the natives that were associated with that gentleman, like said, we want that renamed back to the original name. So
I don't know. I haven't seen that one. I don't know. I'll have to look that up. I think that'd be interesting if that did happen. The Redskins, I don't know much about. I don't know that I care much for that name, if you want to be honest. But their logos and stuff, I think, were good. Cleveland Indians, I thought was a good, perfectly fine name, and seems to be by everybody. But their logos were kind of bad. I mean, they depicted an Indian.
Yeah, if they'd have switched them around, it would have been a better deal. But
around, I don't think Cleveland would have ever had a problem. But anyway, but yeah, Detroit's playing tonight.
We've talked about this before, but it's like when North Dakota tried to change their when the Grand America decided that the Fighting Sioux shouldn't be the Fighting Sioux in North Dakota. They're like the Fighting Sioux said, "We'll be danged if you're going to change that logo."
And I'm glad that happened.
They almost got kicked out of the NCAA, but by that.
Yeah, that's very true. And that's sad because
people that were the Fighting Sioux said, we want the name to stay what it is.
Yeah, we want it to be the Fighting Sioux. So, yeah, and I'm glad that did happen in places because I think it's just, again, it's knee jerk, We've talked about mascots before here. I don't know if we ever really got into those. We talked about
we didn't talk about the controversial ones.
Yeah. Anyway, what time is it? I'm sure it's
it's time.
Well, folks, I really appreciate everybody being here today. I don't know what next week will be about, but it might be about the Vikings because that's really on my mind right now, and that's something I've been actually reading about. And I have books here to read. I'm telling you, buddy, the move got my mind so screwed up. It's taken me so long to get back to some of my serious reading. It's not just a book that's got a lot of information in it, and that I want to read about.
Now the move's done.
I know. I got to get back to
just be.
I got to be. You're right.
Just be.
And Damn. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's been hard. It's been hard. Anyway,
I'm gonna see if I can go get my daughter to like bring a sledgehammer and help me break this.
well,
This,
how about a big
this
son-in-law? You got some strong son-in-laws. They could maybe help.
Yeah, but they live too far away in town, and it won't be a big deal. And
No.
I just do it myself. And
Chuck's saying something else. Hang on a minute. Like here in Oneida County, the county tried to get away from the Oneida Native profile as the logo. The Oneidas didn't approve. Well, good.
amen,
Good.
amen.
I don't know what that profile looks like.
They're my cousins. I got Seneca blood in me, and they're my cousins. So
I'm gonna look that up.
I agree with them.
Well, John, I hope you're not in Valhalla.
I hope you're not in Valhalla either,
You
brother.
are a skull, buddy, and whatever else they say about things like that. But I hope you're not, because I'd rather you were here. And if you ever find out you're coming back down to visit your brother, if we don't get together, I'm gonna be really upset. I'm just gonna tell you, I'll just be plumb mad at you. And I know that really bothers you.
Chuck wants to know when your surgery
Our
is.
surgery is the 28th. Oh, that's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up, Chuck. Because my surgery is the 28th. So next Saturday's show might be the last show for a couple of weeks. I forgot about that, but that's true. I might be here and just BS and talk, which is what we do half the time. But I can't use my arm much. I won't be able to use this arm a lot for typing, I don't think. So we'll see. But yeah, that's a good point. I may have to skip a show or two, but I'll let you know. But it's the 28th if nothing changes, and I have to be at the hospital, of course, at 7 a.m. And they're going to do all that. We're going to go spend the night in Knoxville. We're going to get us a hotel room, I think, down by the hospital, and then just scoot right in there to the hospital. The operate this way this place works is I go to the doctor's offices on the second floor. Well, the first floor, once you get past the entryway, is set up in operating rooms and all for surgical stuff. So, first floor in, back to the wherever, put this little cute gown on, and we'll see you in a few minutes, and then they'll see me, in a couple hours or whatever. All right, Chuck, I will be here, buddy. Chuck, old John says I'm working on that, and maybe in the summer. Well, I'd like to see you, John. Maybe I'd swear if you were down here long enough.
I was hoping he didn't mean the Valhalla part.
Oh, I don't think he does. I see a laughing face there. Man, it'd be nice, John, if you could come down. We could go fishing or something. Wouldn't that be fun? It'd be nice to. I don't know.
Have you met your neighbors yet that got all those big farm ponds? There's got to be bass and bluegills.
I haven't been all of them yet. I need to get out and stroll the road.
I've Googled the earth, and there's a lot of water around you.
Well, there's a nice creek right down here. Not just you can't see it from the house because there's a little hill here, but on the other side,
probably full of green sunfish and pumpkin seeds and all them good fish.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it is. I was looking at that. We were paying attention coming home, and I told Brenda, I said, if we could have done anything different about where our house is, I said, I wish it was on the creek side of the road.
Yeah.
Because it would be, I said, I'd love to have had that creek deck behind their house if we were on a little elevation, because that creek gets up. And there's a couple of houses down there that are right on the creek bank. They must have flooded because back when we had all that rain, because that creek came up, and that's the bad part about being in the creek bottom. But we're up high enough it'll never be an issue. But I hope it's never an issue. If it is, we're in trouble. And we'd go to the top of the hill and wait it out, I guess. And if it gets that high, I'm going to be looking for a big boat full of animals or something come by. Anyway, I'll end on that little note of wisdom right there. How about a little nugget? But anyway, guys, thanks for showing up, Chuck.
Big
Always a
boat
pleasure,
full
John.
of animals.
Do what?
You're walking on your lap again.
I'm sorry. I'm not good at that. I forget. But anyway, we'll see you guys next week. And I'm serious. You and I need to talk about this book sale because there's some stuff in there I think you'd be very interested in. I'll tell you about it.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go
Anyway,
more stuff right now before it gets 40.
You go do that. The temperature might be plumb up above freezing now.
No.
I mean, not freezing. I meant zero.
No, it might be above zero, but just barely.
Or you could look at it like your Canadian friends to the north, and it'd be zero up there, freezing up there.
Yeah.
Or
0
not.
Celsius.
Yeah. Oh, it's below 0 Celsius. Never mind.
It's way below 0 Celsius.
0 Celsius is not zero. Never mind.
All right. I'm out. See you guys.
Bye, guys. See you next time. Bye-bye. Oh, I got to find my button. I got to do more professional work on this.